can't tell whether
Consent agenda.
As a group.
Do you want me to do the consent agenda when it comes up, or that's what's in open part?
I would say,
Yes, ma'am.
I thought we had
No,
to
see.
remove it.
Yeah, see.
after-
good afternoon, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. I'd like to call the May 7th, 2020 Board of Education meeting to order. At this time, I would like to, for all of us to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then Ms. Kraft will lead us in the invocation. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Kraft?
Yes. So there is a rhythm, the ocean follows, and this is life is better at the beach. The waves swell and recede, the tide goes in and out. It affects fishing, sea life, climate, and beachgoers alike. It seems silly to fight against the tide because it's going to continue going in and out, even if you try to resist. The best thing you can do is adjust to its coming and going. The tide has a rhythm, and so does your life. There will be seasons of sorrow and loss, times when the tears won't stop. There will be times when you are filled with joy and hope. You see countless blessings in your life, and they make your heart sing. You may have seasons where you feel alone. You wait for companionship, for someone who understands you. Cry out to God, who hears and he helps. Just as the trees change in the fall and the sun shines brightly in the summer, you will not stay in the same season forever. If you're in a barren and desolate winter, take heart, because spring is coming. If you feel the warm rays of sun in a season of summer, enjoy it. Don't look in dismay at the coming seasons. Bask in the sunlight and give thanks. There are seasons of busyness, and then a reprieve comes. Don't be anxious when you feel the seasons changing. They come and they go, just as the tide rises and falls. And the one who holds the oceans in his hand and sets each star in its place will most certainly be with you through every single season.
Thank you, Ms. Kraft. And again, we're sorry for the loss of your mother.
Thank you.
I know she was dear to your heart. Public comment session. We've had several that have reached out to us by email, and we have some letters that we would like to read on behalf of those individuals. And we also have 3 voicemails that we would like to share with you. And I ask that Ms. Dowdy read some of the letters.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay.
Okay, Madam Chairman, could I bring up something?
Yes.
In the public comment section, it says this is not a time to speak about issues or concerns involving identifiable personnel or students.
Okay.
And aren't those letters identifying someone?
The letters that they're reading?
No,
Yeah.
no, they're
No,
not.
more of a great.
No, as long as, and I think, Ms. Dowdy, you have gone through the letters. They're not speaking on personnel issues. Is that correct?
They're not, that's correct, but there are student names attached to them. We can leave them off and just read the comments if you prefer.
No, that's fine. The names can be attached as long as, I think most of them are addressing graduation. Is that correct?
That is correct. The ones that I have in my hand are addressing graduation.
Okay, yes, please go ahead and read those.
Okay. To whom it may concern, in concern of Kylie Simones and the 2020 graduating class of Currituck County. Life is measured by a completion of a series of events during a person's lifetime. And I would argue the high school graduation ceremony is the initial event in which a graduating student sets off on the right foot. It's a culmination of 12 years of hard work and dedication, which deserves recognition in a public forum. This first great success sets the tone for a student's future education and/or professional goals. Each one of you are here today to make this monumental decision on behalf of our children's lives, and I plead you consider recalling your previous achievements that were ceremoniously recognized and the impact it had on your lives. I am only asking that the graduation ceremony is completed at some point and not canceled in its entirety. Mr. Travis Simones. I am a member of the CCHS 2020 graduating class. I have worked very hard over the last 4 years to graduate high school. The virus has forced the cancellation of many senior events, including senior picnic, senior skip day, ag day, FFA banquet, FFA state convention, hunter safety competitions, spring sports, and the list goes on. I'm begging you not to cancel prom or graduation, even if it means having these events later in the summer. I've seen a parent group on Facebook which has come up with a plan for graduation. They mean well, I'm sure. However, I beg you to take into consideration the wishes of the graduates. Please listen to us. I have talked with many classmates, and every single one, including myself, wishes to have a normal graduation ceremony with friends and families present. If it means that we have to push graduation back, we certainly understand, but it would be worth it. I saw on social media a mom who drafted an email which suggested we only have immediate family present and live stream for others. Sadly, my immediate family consists of my mom and brother, but that does not mean that my other family members who love me and have supported me over the years shouldn't be able to be there and share this special milestone. Changing the date from June 5th to a later date will surely be a problem for someone. This is sad and unfortunate. However, if we must choose, I feel the majority of the class wishes to have a normal graduation ceremony, even if it means having graduation in July or August. Hopefully, we can come up with an alternate date soon. Our class can plan ahead. Thank you for consideration. Please call me with questions. Sincerely, Abby Rose, class of 2020. As the parent of 2 graduating seniors, thank you in advance for sharing the following information with the board. A traditional graduation on June 5th would be the ideal and perfect scenario to celebrate the accomplishments of the seniors who have been denied some of the most memorable days of their lives. However, we understand the reality of this happening on June 5th may be impossible due to COVID-19 social distancing guidelines that could be in place at that time. I would like to ask the board to please make the following suggestions, thoughts into consideration when deciding on a graduation ceremony for the class of 2020. 1, I feel these students need closure as soon as possible, so postponing until a later time in the summer, July or August, should be a last resort. 2, if at all possible, have a traditional ceremony with reduced attendance, even if it means just the students and faculty in attendance. As a parent, it would break my heart, but I'd be willing to watch virtually if it means my students could be in attendance with their peers, spaced apart per social distancing guidelines, hear the speakers, and walk across the stage to receive their diplomas. 3, please do not have a ceremony which will require each student to have only a limited number of guests, 1 to 4 family members. I've never been in favor of a child having to choose between the people they love. 4, lastly, and most importantly, listen to the seniors. This is their graduation, and it should be about them and what they want. Thinking of all of you during this most difficult time, and thank you again. Kind regards, Pamela Likens. I am a parent whose child is a senior at CCHS. I would like the board to consider having a normal graduation in June as originally planned for the class of 2020. With the state starting to lift restrictions now, by the time June 5th gets here, we should be able to have somewhat normal of a graduation. With safety being in mind, there are some measures that can be taken, like spacing the graduates out and spacing families out, possibly even limiting the number that can attend. With the technology, a streaming option for extended family. If the date has to be moved, we may find some of our graduates will have moved on to other things in life and not be able to attend. So I hope that would be taken into consideration too if any decision is made to move the graduation date past mid-June. As a parent and coach in this school, I have always pushed education first in my own children and the players. So they've done their part to get this far. I hope as a collective unit of parents, school staff, and board that a solution can be made to celebrate the hard work these young adults have put in for the past 12 years. Thank you, John Harlow. I am the parent whose child is a senior at Currituck County High School. I would like the board to keep the full graduation ceremony on the original date of June 5th. The COVID-19 restrictions should be lifted by Governor Cooper by that date, especially with the beaches opening for business next weekend. I know that the school board is committed to the safety of all children. I have included some ideas that can be implemented to make this happen. Students can be spaced far apart on the football field, and immediate family members can sit together in the bleachers. Parents would be glad to help tape off areas. Bleachers can be moved from other schools or other areas around CCHS, soccer field, baseball, softball in the district to accommodate these families and allow them to social distance from other families. The ceremony can be live streamed to other family and community members. If COVID-19 restrictions are extended past June 5th, a full graduation ceremony later in June would be an alternative. Many of our seniors have committed to the military, a summertime job, and college sports teams. Pushing back the date to July would most likely exclude them. Our seniors have worked so hard for this monumentous occasion, and they would love to have the graduation they truly deserve and have earned. Bring closure to what they have lost these past few months of their senior year. I appreciate the time and effort the school board puts into protecting the safety of our children. I look forward to hearing from you on this matter. Thank you for your time, service, and consideration. Respectfully, Stephanie Harlow. I'm writing this email in regards to my senior, Kaylin Hartman, and graduation. I ask that you please consider having graduation as planned. These seniors have already missed out on so much this year, from prom, sports, banquets, senior picnics, saying goodbye to friends, that as a parent, I feel they need to walk across the stage with their friends and family cheering them on for one of the greatest accomplishments they've earned for their hard work these past 13 years. Graduation is still a month away, so that leaves time if there is anything were to change drastically with the COVID-19 that we would need to do something else for graduation. But these kids deserve this. I don't see the difference if we are still going to stores, the beach is opening, and we are letting tourists come to our area. I say keep graduation as scheduled, and if you don't feel comfortable coming, then don't, or wear a mask and social distance, or only allow immediate family to come to limit the number of people. I know there will be guidelines to be followed for the COVID-19, and we should all be able to make this happen for our kids. I appreciate all that you've done, standing up to make sure the right thing happens. Thank you, Kim Hartman. I'm a senior at Currituck County High School. I would like the board to keep the full CCHS graduation ceremony on the original date of June 5th, 2020. COVID-19 restrictions may be lifted by North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper by that date, and the beach is opening next weekend for visitors as well. I know that the school board is committed to safety first. If COVID-19 restrictions are extended past June 5th, a full graduation ceremony later in June, or if necessary, early July would be an alternative. I would prefer an actual live ceremony with parents in attendance to a virtual one. Our senior class has worked so hard to earn their high school diplomas, and we deserve a ceremony where we can all be celebrated. A ceremony would allow us to have closure of our time in Currituck. I would be willing to make this happen. As a senior class, we have already lost an entire quarter of school. During the past few months of senior year, we had hoped to have prom, senior skip day, project graduation, and many other special celebrations. We have lost some of those events and even had to give up the grades we earned. Please help us keep a full graduation ceremony before the class of 2020 goes their separate ways, college, military, or starting careers in the workforce. I appreciate the time and effort the school board has put in while I have been a Currituck County student. I look forward to hearing from you on this matter. Thank you for your time, service, and consideration. Zach Harlow. Those are all my letters, Ms. Jones.
And we have several others that Ms. Jones is going to read for us.
As I write to you, I debate if I should keep my opinion to myself and let the chips fall as they may. But I feel the BOE would be inundated with emails to push for the 2020 graduation to take place as soon as possible. So I ultimately feel a need to shed light on the other side of the coin. We have endured so many lost moments and experiences with the health and well-being of our fellow citizens, first responders and healthcare workers as the number one priority. What if just one person is a carrier at the ceremony? They will more than likely be emotional and wipe their nose and eyes and touch people and countless other items around them. Think of how quickly this could spread. Even if you say graduation is for those who feel it is safe to attend, it will be close to impossible for a parent to say their family will not attend.
I strongly feel it is the parents that are feeling they were missed out on this moment more than students. Please do not misunderstand me. I am very sympathetic to the seniors, my son included. They will miss the opportunity to walk and receive their diploma in a ceremonious way, but they are missing their senior prom as well. The students I have spoken with are more disappointed about missing their senior prom than graduation. I do not see or hear anyone pushing to make prom happen, even though it would be a lot less people together. If we push for this in-person graduation and people get sick, all the lost wages, jobs, and special moments they have already lost will have been lost for nothing. Why can't we do a drive-through graduation where all the family members can be in the same car with no outside interaction, no actual diploma, so no teachers, administrators would be at risk? Just a PA announcer as the students drive through playing graduation music. Then it will truly be a moment for their senior who is graduating with their family. Harriet Kralik. Chairman Etheridge, I have a form letter that 3 parents and seniors sent in. If I can just read it in
Yes.
one letter, then I'll give the names of each one. Okay. Actually, this one was sent by Stacy Smith, Casey Maynard, and Sharon Cole. I am the parent of a child who is a senior at Currituck County High School. I would like the board to keep the full CCHS graduation ceremony on the original date of June 5th, 2020. The COVID-19 restrictions should be lifted by North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper by that date. I know that the school board is committed to the safety of all children. I have included some ideas that can be implemented to make this happen. Students can be spaced far apart on the football field, and immediate family members can sit together in the bleachers. Parents would be glad to tape off areas and help. Bleachers can be moved from other schools in the district to accommodate these families and allow them social distancing from other families. The ceremony can be live streamed to other family and community members. If COVID-19 restrictions are extended past June 5th, a full graduation ceremony later in June would be an alternative. Many of our seniors have committed to the military, a job, and college sports team. Pushing the date back to July would most likely exclude them. I appreciate the time and effort the school board puts in protecting the safety of our children, and I look forward to hearing you on this matter. This is from, Stacy Smith did add this, and she's a senior. My name is Stacy Smith, and my child, Courtney Smith, is a senior at CCHS. I am requesting that the board keep the full CCHS graduation ceremony on the original date of June 5th. With the recent announcement of Currituck County and Dare County allowing visitors, there should be no reason why we cannot make this happen for our seniors and families. And then she goes on also the last, to bullet out the 3 ideas. Let's see. I am a senior at CCHS. I would like the board to keep the full CCHS graduation ceremony on the original date of June 5th. The COVID-19 restrictions may be lifted by North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper by that date. I know the school board is committed to safety first. If the COVID-19 restrictions are extended past June 5th, a full graduation ceremony later in June, or if necessary, early July would be an alternative. I would prefer an actual live ceremony to a virtual ceremony. Our senior class has worked so hard to earn college diplomas, and we deserve a ceremony where we can be celebrated. A ceremony would give us an opportunity to have closure on our time at Currituck. I would be willing to make this happen. As a senior class, we have already lost an entire quarter of school. During the last few months of senior year, we have hoped to have a prom, senior skip day, project graduation, and many other celebrations. We have lost all of these events and have even had to give up even had to give up the grades we earned. Please help us keep a full graduation ceremony. I am lucky that my GPA was a 3.5 at the end of the first semester because I was still graduate honors. I worked so hard this semester, and when things moved online, I had A's in all my classes, which are honors and college level classes. Unfortunately, they will not be factored into my GPA. I have already been accepted into the SUNY Canton Nursing Program, and was looking forward to earning my CNA prior to graduation. That is something else that I lost, and I worry about potential scholarships that I will not be able to earn due to the change in the grading policy. Please let us keep our full graduation ceremony. That's Connor Kelly. This is from Juana Harvey. I am the parent of a child that is a senior at Currituck County High School. I would like the board to keep the full CCHS graduation ceremony on the original date of June 5th, 2020. The COVID-19 restrictions should be lifted by North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper by that date. I know the school board is committed to safety of all children. I've included some ideas that can be implemented to make this happen. Virtual Zoom ceremony so that all participants can be included in the award ceremony and other recognitions. Driving graduation with a big screen and individuals can participate via car. This would ensure that we continue social distancing and keep all individuals safe. If COVID-19 restrictions are extended past June 5th, a full graduation ceremony later in June would be another idea. Many of our seniors have committed to the military and job, college sports teams, or have new student orientation. Pushing the date back to July would most likely exclude them. I appreciate your time and effort the school board has put into protecting the safety of our children. And my last one, Mrs. Rachel Mooney. Hello, my name is Rachel Mooney. I'm the mother of Currituck County High School senior class of 2020. I am writing today on behalf of my son who has worked so hard for the past 13 years to reach his moment in life. Please consider to hold the graduation as scheduled or pushing it to the end of June. Many of these young men and women have committed to the military or college and must be at their assigned post or campus by July or August. Most, if not all, parents are willing to do whatever it takes to give their child this one last memory before they enter adulthood. We as parents are willing to step up and take down. We feel confident that we can hold this event with social distancing in place by setting the graduate chairs 6 feet apart, having them walk one row at a time, have them picking up their diploma instead of having it handed to them, and instruct them to bow their head instead of shaking hands. Have only the parents in these decisions in mind.
Hi, my name is Tammy Kelly, and I am calling to sign up for public comment for the school board meeting tonight. I am a senior parent. I also teach many of our dual enrolled students at COA. I'm their psychology instructor. I've been that for about 10 years. So I know many of the kids that are graduating. Although my child will actually get to continue to fulfill his education and athletics at college, many of our students will not, and this is a very important, graduation is a very important milestone for them and their loved ones. I think it's really important that we try to keep a full graduation ceremony with maybe some modifications as much as possible. These students really deserve this. There's lots of children that will not get anything like this in our county, and I think it's very important. These students have given up their grades for the second semester and many other senior activities. If they're able to have a graduation, I think that will give them some closure and give them an opportunity to say goodbye to their friends, some of their teachers and administrators. I think they need that, especially the way things ended. This will be a great way for them to finish up their college career and their high school career and let them have closure. You have a great group of involved senior parents that would be more than happy to help you make this happen. If it means moving bleachers from other schools, taping off areas of 6 feet of distance, whatever it may be, you have a huge group of parents that are more than happy to help. You are not in this alone. We would like to be a part of anything as far as making it happen. Please, please help our students, our senior students, have as much of a full graduation as possible. First choice would be the actual date of graduation. I know weather may be an issue, so if we can pick a second rain date possibly, I know outside would be the safest situation for our students, faculty, and staff. If you need to call or get in touch with me, my phone number is 757-64.
That was Mrs. Tammy Kelly.
My name is Abby Rose. I live at 212 Pointers Road, Modoc. I'm a senior at CCHS, and I would like to talk about two things. First, I would like to talk about Teacher Appreciation Week. I would like to give a shout out to all the teachers who have taught me and inspired me to pursue a degree in college. And of course, Dr. Matney. Dr. Matney has been an amazing principal, always greeting students in the morning, walking around, and interacting with the students. I've never had a better principal in all 13 years in Currituck County. He has been absolutely amazing my senior year this year. He has written so many letter of recommendations for college and scholarships. He has been absolutely amazing. I don't know what I would have done without Dr. Matney my senior year, and I can speak for many other seniors and other students. Second, I received a survey asking which senior event I wanted most, either graduation, senior picnic, or prom. Of course, I chose graduation, and you'll hear my email later in this meeting. I had worked so hard for 13 years to walk across that stage in front of friends and family. But prom is also important to me. I look forward to my last prom. I even bought this gorgeous dress that I cannot wait to wear. I know we have to follow governor's orders, so I'm proposing this. I was in contact with Mr. Bob White, chairman of the county commissioners, and asked if he would support prom at the Whalehead Club in Corolla at a later date, whether that be end of June, early July, whichever we can have a prom. It would be much safer for us to be outside instead of some event that has closed areas. He was in support, so please don't write off prom. I have talked with many classmates, and if prom is canceled and not rescheduled, we will have our own. So please think about this, because either if you cancel prom or you have prom, we are going to have prom no matter what, since many students have bought their dresses and spent a lot of money on them. Thank you for your time, and I hope you think about everything that is coming up at this board meeting. Thank you.
And this is the last one.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jones. My name is Marcy Barrow, parent of Connor Barrow, a senior at Currituck County High School. I'm calling to voice my opinion and my concern about Currituck County High School continuing to pursue the fact of holding a full-on graduation. These seniors have missed out on so many things, and I would like this done as soon as possible, truly holding to the June 5th date. If current surrounding county schools like Camden can hold theirs on the same date they propose, I feel Currituck County, especially opening the beaches, can do the same thing. My son is going to be a Marine, has already sworn in, and is going to be leaving us very soon. And I would like my family and friends to be able to celebrate his graduation and all of his accomplishments prior to him leaving. I hope this decision made tonight will be based on our parents, not just school board members. Thank you for your time and have a great afternoon.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. I'd like to thank everyone that took the time to send us an email and also to call in and leave us a voicemail message. We really appreciate your concerns, and as you know, we have concerns too, and we would love to be able to celebrate with the seniors this year and have a graduation and possibly prom. So we're going to be discussing that. Item C, we have we need to approve the agenda.
I'd like to make a motion that we set item 3 at a consent agenda, item 6, item 7, item 8, and item 9 off until the next meeting. I'd ask they all be removed.
Okay.
Which ones? 3,
3, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I don't know, I didn't see a 10.
It's on the back.
Yep, 10.
Can we discuss this?
Yes, but we
Sure.
need a
After you have
second.
a second.
Need a second. Do I have a second? I have a first on the floor. Do I have a second?
I'll make a second for purpose of discussion.
Okay, I have a first and second. Any discussion?
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Rose?
I would like the COVID-19 policy update. I don't know why we want to remove that, item 6.
Well, because it's a lot of policy that I haven't had an opportunity to review with assembly being down this week and just now getting a packet of it. And it kind of goes to the discussion, some of the discussions we were having earlier, when we just elect and vote in and accept policies at the recommendations of these lawyers and these North Carolina Board of Association groups, and the next thing you know, your rights and ability to do anything are greatly narrowed in scope and muzzled, in my opinion. And I'm about getting sick and tired. I want to make sure that every policy that I vote in favor of, that I've had an opportunity to review, because it seems that I keep learning that policies exist that are way beyond what the state's requirement are, and reduce our ability to have any input as elected officials.
Well, I did read over this, and I don't think it's any policies that we will vote on. I think it's more or less a report of what the state says we can do.
Particularly about graduation and,
No,
Yeah.
there's a whole
policy.
there's a whole
Okay.
litany
Oh,
of
all
stuff.
Then, I'm sorry, what I meant to say was, I think we should report, maybe not do if we're not doing the policies, that's fine, but I think we definitely need to add a report on changes to COVID-19 rules, because there are some things like, what our teachers are gonna do moving forward. There's been some changes as to what they can do.
Yeah, I don't have all those pieces and parts with me, about the changes that just came into effect Monday.
It's a part of their packet. It is.
All I'm saying is, if it's something that's required by state, I have no ability to vote against it.
Yeah.
Then of course I'm gonna vote in favor of it, even if I disagree with it.
Right.
If it's a bunch of stuff in there that says recommended, should, could, would, may, I haven't had an opportunity to go through all this. This is why we find things in our policy later that limit our ability to do anything. And I'm not comfortable with just rubber stamping anything going forward.
Okay. Can we add to the agenda, are you prepared, Superintendent Stefanik, can you talk to us? Anything, give us an update on how things have changed with COVID-19 and air requirements?
I can give you some highlights.
Okay.
But, I'm gonna tell you, I don't have them all written down, so I
Okay.
might not get them all, but I can give you some highlights.
Okay.
Not just with that, no, there was a new thing with the governor made a new executive order on Monday.
Okay.
And so there were some changes with that superintendents across the state are not just processing.
Okay. So maybe we can add that to the agenda, just a report on how it's affecting air system, what the governor's mandated.
Yeah, and we've
Nothing
got.
that we vote on, just a report.
Yeah, just some of the changes. We've got,
Yeah.
I've got Dr. Lutz and Ms. Dowdy that they've been on some of those updates too, so they can add anything I missed.
All right, I have a question. Why would we remove 7 through 10, Mr. Product?
7 through 10 are the board meeting minutes from several meetings, and I started reviewing them. If that had sent me an email earlier, I didn't have enough time to go through all of them, but I did find a couple things that I wanted to have added that were discussed. And so she suggested, rather than just try to figure it out real quick in a hurry, we could have that ready for the next meeting.
Okay.
we've done that before.
Yes, ma'am. And it's nothing other than I want the reflection of the record, actually.
Okay.
And I would like to ask a question about the minutes for April 21st. Can I ask that now?
Yes.
When we met, and we talked about funding and what have you, and I asked that we get an email going referencing the funding of the mobile unit from the county.
Yes.
Did we get that?
Yes,
Okay. Can we get a copy or something of that, please?
I can forward it to you.
Okay.
Okay, Madam Chairman, item 3, administrative contract renewal, which is being suggested that we remove. I'm just letting you know, I'm going to vote against the approval of the agenda because I believe the administrative contract renewal should be approved as presented.
Okay. All right, any other discussion?
So we're adding to the agenda, COVID-19 operations report moving forward. We're just gonna, okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I just want to tell you, the reason I'm asking to have the administrator contract renewal removed is because there's some information that I've been told that I can't access, or it wouldn't be a good idea because it might make me impartial to another matter at hand. And I can't say much because once again, some of these policies we adopted, some are state, but some are local. I'm muzzled and shackled and I can't tell you about it. So rather than vote on it and rubber stamp it, I want to be able to get the adequate information at the appropriate time and make a reasonable decision. And I also want to, in the future, recommend that we go through our whole policy handbook and get rid of a lot of these very subjective policies and these ones that really are doing our district a disservice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have an approval, a motion to approve. We have a second, and they would like to exclude item 3, item 6, but we'd like further discussion from Mr. Stefanik and remove 7, 8, 9, and 10 from the consent agenda. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries. Our agenda is approved with the changes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for the remainder of the agenda, there were some new guidelines for board votes. And it has to do with remote meetings, and this is kind of a remote meeting, and people can't see, so they may not know where the voices are coming from.
Yes.
And so each agenda item could be a roll call vote.
Okay.
So then you would say, Mr. Product, he would say aye or nay, Mr. Kraft would say aye or nay, you just go around.
Do you want me to do that for the consent agenda?
Your call.
Okay.
Your call.
All right. At this time, we will have a roll call vote. Ms. Kraft, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr.
Yes.
Product?
Yes.
Dr. Dobney?
No.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you.
For the rest of the board, that gives the audience who's not in the room a chance to know where the votes are coming from, because they might not be able to see on camera.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Item D, 2020-21 budget for Currituck County schools. I ask that Larissa and Mark lead that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see Ms. York has unmuted herself, and so she's ready. We have put together a draft budget for the Currituck schools, and Ms. York has studied it and worked with it for many, many days, weeks, maybe a couple of months here, and she's going to highlight where the budget is as of today. And one little highlight note, because of the current health situation that we're in, it's impacting allocation possibilities at the state level and the federal level. And so some of the information we may have received in February and early March, it's already starting to change. And so Ms. York has put together the best possible budget proposal with the moving targets that she's having to deal with. So without further ado, Ms. York.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, very, very well.
Sorry. This is a new mic and camera, so I'm not sure if I can turn it down. I don't know.
Mike works very well.
Okay, sorry. Okay, what you have before you is something that I called draft a budget. This is something that the commissioners have asked for. They asked for it to be given to them in March. Hold on a second. Does that make a difference? Does that make a difference? No, okay. Okay. So back in March, we were just entering our COVID-19.
Ms. York, hold on a second, Ms. York.
I think I'm looking at the wrong thing.
We don't actually have your document.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there anybody in the office with you?
Which document is she?
Yeah, well, I can get it to you. Do you want me to?
Budget, we do have this. Oh, I have it, only because I printed it, it was sent to us.
Okay.
It was a part of the agenda items.
Do you have a hard copy right there?
I do.
Okay. All right.
You want a copy?
If you don't mind, so I can follow along. Yes, please.
Okay. Sorry about that. Ms. York, as they're running the copies real quick, do you have any general comments, like intro comments you can make while we're running the copy?
Sure. So this is an in-depth draft budget that I'm going to give, that I would like to give to the commissioners, and it gives them information on where the money's coming from and where it's going to be spent. I speak in PRCs. You guys speak in purpose codes. So I combined the two into this document so that they could look and get more information that is hopefully more understandable to them than that giant report that we give to them every year. So on this is just, like I said, it's a draft. I have very little information to go on, and I'm not trying to be funny. I have very little information. The state has gotten me an initial allotment, but they've already said that they may be changing them and they may be taking some of the money back. So all I can do is guess and give you and the county what I have at this current time. So that's what you will see on the document that I've given to you.
If you want, I can fill something in here. With that being said, the state, there were differing recommendations in the General Assembly, one from the House and one from the Senate, but in their conference committee report that came out that the governor signed, they are going to move ahead with dropping the primary class sizes another student. So that means our class sizes shrink, which have extra teachers in K-3 district-wide. So our estimate right now, based on projected enrollment, is we're going to need 4 or 5 additional primary teachers for the district. But we made information known to the county yesterday that except for those positions and any EC positions that we would need because of incoming IEP students, that we are not planning on any additional positions being added to the district. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to stay inside the budget and not have any additional personnel expenditures aside from primary classrooms on state mandate or exceptional children on federal and state mandate.
And where would that funding come from for those additional 4 or 5 teachers?
That would be state funding.
It's supposed to be state funding, but it's in 2 different pockets. The initial misunderstanding between the state and the local school district statewide was that the state had already allocated
the 1 to 16 for first grade, 1 to 18 for second and third grade, whatever the numbers are in those primaries. But they never gave us a separate allocation for specials teachers, art, music, and PE. So now what they've done is that they've sequenced in the class sizes to get them to that funding amount. They started adding a percentage of the money we would need for art, music, and PE teachers. And so we're gonna get another 25% because it's a 4-year phase-in. We're gonna get another 25% for the specials teachers, but there's no guarantee that that allocation is gonna be enough to cover however many primary teachers we need for the district. So it comes from state, but then if there's any extra that we need, then we have to pull from local.
I believe I read where they were talking about not moving forward with the next reduction in class size because of this
Right, that was,
COVID-19.
right, that was the House proposal.
Okay.
But when they got together and they did the final proposal that they sent to the governor for signature, it said, yes, we are moving forward with the lessening of the class sizes and the additional 25% for the special teachers.
Ms. York, I have a question for you on page 3, section 8. It refers to state lottery funds of $450,000 and the county appropriation of $1 million. Is that after our discussion, Mr. Stefanik,
Yes.
that our capital outlay budget that we normally receive from the county is being cut by $400,000?
That's correct.
I just wanted, okay,
Right, right,
thank you, because
yeah.
the lottery funds is the 450, so that's constant, that stays the same, but that million shows the reduction of 400.
That's correct.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we would, right, we would have had 1.4.
Page 3,
Yeah.
section 8.
Yeah, we would have had 1.4 plus the,
That mine goes from section
From the
5
lottery.
to section 10. I don't have page 3.
Section 6, 7, and 8, and 9.
Just number 8, I was just clarifying that, I wanted to make sure of that, because we did have a discussion this week with them concerning that.
Is that a definite? I mean, I know that they were talking about doing that if revenue was down because of lack of tourism for
Yes.
the COVID-19. But we're opening up the beaches. Are we really gonna need to make that reduction?
Well, according to them, we are, they're
Oh.
seeing a 40% hit across the board, which seems high to me, but when I questioned that this week, they said it's based off of a couple different factors, with tourism, sales tax, revenue.
That's what they're anticipating.
Well, they're seeing it already.
Well, I mean, they've already
They-
lost.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand, but we've still got a lot of summer left.
Well, Mr. Stefanik brought up that point, and I think maybe we'll get into
Yeah,
that for the
they-
next topic.
right, well, yeah, they said that, what they want to do is they want to be conservative in how they budget now. But then, if we would, have a follow-up meeting in December or January, they would let us know if collections were closer to typical, and then if there would be more money available.
That is another item that I would like for you to get a string of emails going about that, because you won't be here.
Well, there was one that, and was a request in the last meeting that I didn't have on my list that I just got the other day, was that, a timeline about the lottery money and how long we were gonna have it and when it was gonna sunset off, and so I'll start that and I can add this thing too. So to answer Karen's question real quick, Chairman, Edwards' question, that number, section 8, if it would have been typical, it would have said 1.4
Right.
in the capital outlay line, and then the 450,000, so the total would have been 1.8
I
instead of
see.
1.45 it is now.
So we're
So-
losing 400,000 from last year, we're getting that much less.
Yes.
Well, wait a minute. To your point, I agree. But I didn't think sales tax is what paid capital money for our budget. I thought sales tax paid a portion of the local funds, but not the capital money. I thought the capital money came from 1% transfer fee tax, which is related to real estate.
It comes from both.
Okay.
I thought the
Where I'm
property
going with
tax
it
and the real
is-
estate was for our operational money.
Real estate started off good this year.
Where I'm going with it is, as a result of the lowest interest rate, I think in history, free money, essentially. Mortgage applications are actually on the rise.
They are. That's true.
So are we having to have a reduction anywhere else in the local funding other than the capital?
No.
Okay,
Not at this time.
has the formula that we had a problem from the state with the influx of students and we were below a certain amount to capture that for this year? Are we gonna get that in the AEM funding formula from the county moving forward in this new budget?
Yes. From the
Okay.
from the county.
Right,
The state is still, they gave us that, correct me if I'm wrong, Larissa, they gave us that planning number for students. And it was a significant increase over our number from last year. But the state hasn't said whether they'll be able to hold an AEM funding for
Okay.
them. But yes, for the county, yes, they have that new number.
I'm not comfortable with the $1 million. I've been told it from several people, I could be wrong. They come from different funding sources. I realize it all comes from the county. We're gonna have a real difficult time maintaining our already capital needs, maintenance, repairs, mobile units. Now we're having to absorb a portion of, which I believe was a combination of planning error on multiple fronts, but nonetheless, we're already having to absorb half of that out of a reduced capital budget. We need to do a little. I think we're going to have to do a little better job of presenting our needs. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but this is going to put us in a bad way.
Well, exactly. Well, that's what when we had the discussion with them this week. Sure, I mean, you take $400,000 that we were counting on for our capital improvements. That's a huge hit to Currituck County schools. And what they're saying when they said the 40% reduction in revenues for them, to me, you're singing to the choir, because I'm thinking, okay, 6 to 8 weeks, how does that compute to a 40% loss? That's what I'm
Especially
thinking.
when it's not the
peak
it's not the
season.
peak season.
Right,
Wait a
but
minute.
we're getting the information from the commissioners
Yes, ma'am.
and from the county manager. And so what they told us this week is that reduction of $400,000 would be off the.
Okay, but yes, ma'am, I just want to point out that when you absorb, I think it's $75,000. Is that, or is it 35? Is it half the 75 payment for the mobile units? What part are we sharing?
No, well, we have 25, and then Mr. Mullins had said that there would be another 15 to 25 in utility hookups and they can.
I thought we had a lease payment that we were splitting with the county.
Yeah, 25.
Okay, 25 grand.
Yeah.
All right, so really, if they took 400 off of last year's capital budget, and now we've also absorbed 25,000 with the mobile units, it's not like taking 400,000, it's like taking 425,000, etc. And so this will put us in a bad situation. We've already acknowledged that we're in a bad situation, and
We talked about this at the last meeting and said we did not want to agree to give up $400,000. We also have been talking for over a year.
I don't want to agree to it either.
all right, so
We've been talking about the pupil funding formula, how that needs to be increased.
Yes.
We've got, in our reserve, we've got about $450,000. I mean, that has, audits by Evergreen and their own auditor. They're both telling us that that's not enough money to have in reserve. And now we're going to get even less money. This is not good. I I don't like this.
We're not-
What can we do?
Well, what I was gonna say to this, is that when we create the budget, we have to take the numbers that were given by federal, state, and local, or the numbers that are predicted, to come from them. That's what this budget document is. It doesn't say that these numbers are locked in forever.
Right.
So as part of either our capital, budget sheet that we turn in, we can also turn in a narrative that says $400,000 less is not helping out the school district. We need more support, in this area. And then I'm sure after they get this document, we're gonna be called with questions or whatever about just general budget. Then maybe we can have what the board has asked for, our session, like the county departments have, to actually go over there and make a presentation to the commissioners about our needs in the school district.
I think that would be good, and I really think we need to work on that for pupil funding. We need to get our fund balance up to more than 400,000, and we're never gonna do it.
I can tell you right now, they're not gonna
Okay,
No, because
Budge.
their deal is that they have a fund budget, they have a fund balance and they'll, they want us to come and ask them.
I'll be honest with you, I'm not really interested in getting the fund balance grown.
Well,
What I'm
that's
interested in,
recommended.
I'm interested in getting leaky roofs repaired. I'm interested in paying for mobile units. I'm interested in getting teachers in place and keeping small classrooms and teachers' aides and resources, and reducing the time on these buses. Even if we have to spend more of our local monies, I'd rather have those investments made than sitting in a balance. I'm looking at getting things done.
Well,
And,
the point of a fund balance is when we get that influx of first graders or second graders, we've got the money and we can go on and hire a teacher and fix the problem.
we need them
it.
now.
Well, that fixes the problem for 1 year.
Yeah,
Well,
we need
that's
them
true.
now. We need them
That's
now.
true.
We need teachers' aides. We need resources.
We asked for that.
We need
talked
shorter
about
bus
that.
ride times. We need not leaky roofs in buildings.
Okay,
That's,
Okay.
so
that's,
I think we all agree on that.
Miss York, okay, I'm
Yeah, I was gonna
sorry.
say, now we can go back to Lewis and everybody has their
I got
copies.
one
and-
question, never mind that, but, what is, she did say, we thinking, policy, numbers, what was it? And they think, are you thinking PRC? Can you tell me about that? Because I don't know what you are describing.
Okay, so if I present numbers in a PRC format, that lets you know how much is going towards teachers, or how much is going towards central office administration, or how much is going towards, it gives you the detail of the money instead of just giving you a big chunk of 23 million is going to instructional services. Well, that doesn't tell me much. So this document gives more of the detail in the PRC format, which is how we actually do our accounting for the school system.
Well,
So you're basically talking about section 2, is that right?
Yeah. So if you look at section 2, you see the first PRC is 001, teachers. I'm guessing that 14,422,188 is going to go towards teachers' salaries.
Okay, Larissa, the current expense part of the budget, the only thing that we got in the current expense, local current expense, was based on the funding formula. Is that correct?
Yes, you mean from local funding?
Right.
Yes. So I had a conversation with Sandra Hill from the county, and I did my funding formula spreadsheet, and I came up with a figure, and she told me, well, we're going to give you 11,447,202. And that was actually very close to my figure. It was only about $30,000 off. So she had given me that number. I don't know if it's been voted on or anything. She just gave me the number. So that's what I used in this document.
Okay, the funding formula is based on consumer price index. What was it this last year? What was it based on?
So she told me that they use the average to average U.S. Department of Labor Total Consumers Price Index for 2019. And that is 1.8%.
Oh,
Okay, next question.
excuse me, Dr. Don, real quick off of that percentage. Larissa, one thing that you might want to check on that, the commissioners took a vote about 2 years ago that said that the floor was 2%. And so if that consumer price index was 1.8, and that's what they used in their funding formula calculation, they might have to redo it with the 2% floor.
That's correct. So I did it with the 1.8 and I did it with the with the 2%. And I came up with 11,478,196. And they're funding us 11,447,202.
Oh, so that's
$31,000
that's the $30,000. Then that's
Yep.
that's the 0.2. Okay.
That's the 2%.
Okay, have you received any update on the fines and forfeitures sued at the state level?
No, I haven't. You mean the law?
The fines and forfeitures for a long time.
Yeah.
They should be starting to repay some of that.
They're negotiating a timeline for payback, but I haven't received any updates. Have you?
No, I have not. Nope.
And at the same time, they keep giving us like the total state amount. We don't know what the Currituck piece of that pie is yet.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. York?
I like the format. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
That was going to be my question.
It is easier to read.
This is a new format.
Very nice.
The commissioners in there.
Yeah.
And you don't have to have,
Yeah. It's easier to read. Thank you.
I think what you'll find is this will be able to have discussions more easily when the information is reflected in this manner.
I agree. I think it's going to be much easier for everyone to understand and read. Yeah.
But I was still trying to understand the term that you used that we were thinking in, because I wasn't thinking it, but I wanted to hear you say it again. That's why I was asking, what that other term was?
PRC?
No, this is the PRC.
You said PRC compared to what?
Oh, purpose code. So I need to present, state law requires that I present the Board of Education with the budget in a purpose code format. And if you look at section 1, all that is just like big pots of money.
Mm-hmm.
And that is section 1. And then section 2 is my addition to narrow that down and describe the actual pots of money and how much is going into each pot.
So again, for board information and our audience, there are certain laws that govern how we have to set up our budget. There was a request from the commissioners to give more detail to the budget document so it was easier to understand. And so what Ms. York did is she merged the two things together so that we're still within state law for the way we have to report it. And there's some additional information for the public to have ease in understanding.
You did a fabulous job, Ms. York. We
You
really
did.
I think everybody appreciates it.
That doesn't mean that I'm happy with.
We don't want the numbers.
Right.
Formatted it.
You like the outline, but the numbers aren't real good.
Right. The numbers are terrible, I know.
Well, I would like to continue to keep the communication open with our county commissioners and our county manager, county attorney, because we can't keep going in the direction that we're continuing to go. We need some
Not
help.
and provide the services that we're
Right.
providing.
We need some
Somebody
help.
needs to talk about the 0.2% to whoever the powers may be, that was,
Yeah, we can take care of that one.
Is it possible for us to, a couple years ago, we had a meeting with the commissioners. I think we need to talk to them. everything's going up and our budget's going down.
Hold on a minute. Matt, you buying up all that diesel fuel while it's cheap?
I can only buy what I can store. I wish I could.
We better get him some tanks, because this is wiped out. I haven't seen it that low since the late eighties.
I have about 1,000 gallons. That's about all I can store right now.
If I get any more, they're gonna invite me to a table with OPEC.
Not to rain on anybody's parade, but tanks cost money too.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about the electric bills? I'm assuming they've gone down?
Yes, they have. I was just signing those today. They haven't gone down a whole lot, but larger stores have gone down around $700 a month, which in my house, that's a whole lot. But for some of them, that's not much, but they are going down.
Okay.
Paper cost is going down, at your house is going up.
Yeah.
Madam Chairman, if I could, it might take two separate actions, but could we merge together for discussion purposes, letters D and E, and then call for action after the board
Yes.
decides how they want to do this?
Yes.
Larissa, you want to describe why there's a D with a budget for action, and then why there's an E, an interim budget proposal?
Right, so the draft budget that you have before you is not me doing our budget for next year. This is only to give to the county to show them my best guess of what our budget will look like next year. I don't want this to be our budget because I don't have hardly any information to complete our budget for next year. So that's why I've done an interim budget resolution so that we can continue to operate on our current budget. And then when I get more information and I get more concrete numbers, then I can come to you with real budget resolution that will be in the same format if you guys really like it.
Again, for the board, this is the same that we had last year and the year before. What we've done at the time during the year is we do an interim budget proposal. And what that says is that if our budget is not finalized with accurate information populated with allocations from the state and federal and the local by July 1st, we have the permission of the board to operate off of this year's budget and roll it past the change in fiscal years in July until we get this draft budget finalized. And so the board's decision at this point is to whether, and again, it's against Larissa's recommendation.
Yes.
Whether you want to call this draft budget the actual budget, or whether you want to do the interim budget, and the interim budget is what we operate off of until all the pieces, parts of this draft budget get approved. And that would be the three prongs, the local, the state, and the federal.
If I'm not mistaken, we've had an interim budget for probably the last 25, 30 years.
Right, and we never presented even a draft proposal to the commissioners, and so my thought is that we presented this information, even in draft form, it'll be more than they've gotten in May.
Well, I was just
Before.
getting ready to say, because that was one of the things we heard when you did your
Right.
presentation when I was there, is that we've never gotten a budget on time.
Right, so if we give them this, we can still call it draft because of the minimal amount of information we have and how the economic market is changing. But then we have an interim budget so that the district can continue to operate,
So we would
even if
send
we don't
them
have allocations finalized by July 1.
So I just got a question. Do either of the interim budget or the draft budget have us going back to combination classes or things like that in any of these schools?
No. What, none of that is actually in the budget. What the budget is just funding allocations and then appropriations. So what would happen is we would mirror this school year's operation going into July until we get numbers that verify that allows us to do something different.
I just didn't know if we had any with the interim budget, because I'm not seeing that. The great disparity between numbers that would possibly allow that to happen.
And actually, and Larissa, speak to this if I'm misspeaking, but if there is no action by the General Assembly, then we continue to operate on the dollars that we got this year, which are actually equivalent to the dollars, most of the dollars we got last year. So we'd be operating off of 18-19 funding for the 2021 school year. And so now when you talk about combination classes and other things that, some of the board members don't want to see, as we start to have fewer and fewer resources, then decisions are going to have to be made on how you set up the schools before you run out of money.
That's what we
and
just
so-
said. We
and so-
cannot
right.
provide the same level of
That's what I'm
services
trying to get to.
without more money.
Right, if
And
you
so
don't, right, if you
That's
don't want to go
why
to
I'm
combination.
saying I don't want to get into that situation.
Right, so that's the thing, if you don't want to have those combination classes, you either have to make sure you do resources, or you make reductions somewhere else, so you don't have to do combination classes. Those are the conversations that have to
That's why
happen.
we need to have the conversations with the commissioners. and the
Absolutely.
manager.
Can we set up a meeting? Yes, we can set up a meeting.
All right.
All right, I'd like to make the motion that we approve the interim budget resolution for the 2020-21 year, and then take action on both item D and E, approving that. I second.
Okay, so for clarification, what you're doing is you're approving the draft budget, and so this is the starting point
Yes.
for our budget for next year.
That's right.
But until it gets finalized, you're approving the interim budget to move forward.
Yes.
Can we have some discussion?
Yeah,
You always do,
definitely.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
we
sure.
did the first and
But-
second, so,
But,
I don't know what else we could do.
no, because when we spoke to Chairman White, he wanted this information by the 15th.
Yes, they were gonna have a budget retreat, I think, next
Yes.
week. And the second day of the retreat is Friday, and that's the school funding day, and so they wanted this in their hands. They asked if they would have some sort of budget document, and we said yes, they would.
Yes, and
And
that's
you can't
why,
send it to them if we approve it.
Oh, yes,
Right.
ma'am, I realize
Right,
that.
right.
no,
I
this is
understand.
this is, to me, a rough draft
Yes, ma'am.
of the budget, because we don't know, there's so many unknowns.
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
think we're rolling over and playing dead. I just think that we need to adopt this, and then we need to
That's
get
right.
the meeting
That's
together
right.
and, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay,
So we
well-
have to take action in order to provide
Them,
them with this,
otherwise we'll
budget.
do
If
that.
not, we're not.
I want to take some action.
Okay.
I wanna give them-
So I
I
have
wanna
a
give
first
them
and
a-
I have,
Sending a narrative.
Well, I want to talk about one aspect before we take
I
that.
have a first and I have a second. Any discussion, Mr. Crowder?
Yes, ma'am. So what I would like to do is I would like to vote to send this draft over with the amendment that we modify this $1 million county capital appropriation to 1.25 million, and kind of see if we can't not be trying to totally buck the system, but at least not come back in a real bad way with our capital funding.
And we need to do the same with the 0.2% that you said was, they had said it would never be less than 2%.
Right, and Ms. Rose, just, we were kind of having a slight conversation while you guys were working through the first and the second. Over here, and she said, can we have a narrative along with this budget proposal? And yes, we can put the narrative in there, so we can put the recommendation that
I mean,
not
it's
drop all the way to a
30,000, but
million.
it's 30,000.
Yeah, we'll not drop all the way to a
Yeah.
million, but could the reduction just be 1.25 instead of all the way back to a million? And, they made the 2% floor proposal and resolution a couple of years ago. That they put that at 30,000 more there, and then request a meeting to discuss budget needs for the school district in general.
Well, I think rather than ask if it can be,
Yeah, I wanna change that
should we
number.
not change that number?
So 1.2 million is what I would like to see. I don't, you got motion, we're gonna vote on it, but that's the discussion.
Okay,
Well,
all right,
Did they tell y'all?
yes, they told us. Okay, I'd like to withdraw my motion.
Withdraw my second.
Well, you can,
Amend the motion. Mr. Cronick, let us know how you would like the amendment.
I'd like to send this draft and this interim budget over with the adjustment of the county capital appropriation from 1 million to 1.25 million. I would like to add the narrative about the
0.2%.
0.2% of the cost index multiplier And I would like to attempt to have a meeting, if we can't do it as a whole people, sometimes they're not.
I think that would be good.
We can, well, yeah, but 10 is the problem right now.
Oh.
So
Tell them we'll meet
sometimes
outside if
we
they'd like
can
for us
have,
There
to.
you
we
go.
can have two from
groups.
this board and two from that board and the two, CEOs.
Even 3 from each board
That's what I would like to
would
see.
be within.
So if I may just clarify, I'll be changing the county appropriation number in section 4 to 11,478,196. And I'll be changing the county appropriation number in section 8, 1,250,000. And then I'll change the numbers accordingly to balance that. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
ma'am.
And I'll take care of the rest of the narrative.
Okay. All right, you got it. You got it. Thank
you. Now, is that as a motion?
And I seconded it.
Seconded that motion. Okay, the
I have a
amendment.
first and I have a second. Any discussion? Motion carries.
All right, but you got it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Roll
We do have to vote by
Yeah,
roll
we'll do it
call.
like we did.
Okay, Ms. Kraft?
I vote yes.
Vote yes. Mr. Croddick?
Yes.
Okay, Dr. Dobney?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. York.
Thank you.
Way to go, Ms. York.
Okay, moving to item F, capital outlay budget. Mr. Mullins, we touched on it some with discussion on the other 2 items, but if you'd like to share with us some thoughts concerning the capital outlay budget, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I was very concerned when Mr. Stefanik came back from, I guess, a conference with the county manager and said that we had to cut $400,000 more out because we're barely getting by with the 1.4, to have to cut it to 1, and even suggested that we cut it to 900,000 was kind of scary. So I'm glad that you folks are looking into trying to get 1.25, because there were some very important things that I felt like we should have gotten into the budget. They've been put off for a couple of years, and I didn't want to put them off again. So hopefully this will work.
I hope it will. We can't say it enough. We just keep cutting and cutting our budget items, and some of these things with the capital outlay funds, they're not, it's not a wish list. It's must have.
No,
It's neat.
I make sure that the things that I put in are things that I have on either on a schedule of things that I want to look into or want to get done, or things that after that come up during the year that just happen, and they end up on the next year's capital outlay list because they happen and they become an emergency, and that's the only place we can get that kind of money.
Hey, Matt, where would you add to the capital outlay budget if you had the extra 250,000? What projects?
Oh my gosh, I mean, I'll be honest with you folks. There's always things that I can do, roofing, air conditioning, but I really felt like the track needed to get in there this year for the athletes because we put it on so many years. But is that the most important to me? Probably not. But I felt like I had put it off. I prepared it. Our track athletes can't compete on that track anymore. So I really felt like that 195. It's really, I can get it for cheaper, but I went with the higher number because I didn't know if the cheaper guy could come in and do the job in a timely manner. I do believe that the air conditioning units at JP Knapp's A building are at an age where they need to be addressed sooner than later. And I cut them out last year. I've cut them out this year. It's hard for me to say what's most important because there's a lot of critical things. The wrestling mats, they're at an age where, from what I understand from speaking with a couple of the athletic directors, after 15 years, if someone gets injured on the mat, we're at a liability stage of someone getting hurt because the mats are beyond their life expectancy. So that's why I threw those in this year. I mean, if you look at the bottom number, we cut before we went to the next level of cutting for the county's extra 30%. We had already cut over 600,000 out of our needs before they said we need to cut more. So I take so much time and effort over 6 to 8 months of the year to compile this list that I have a strong feeling for everything.
Are you saying if we get the extra 250,000, you'll be able to do the track?
The track would be able to be done. The wrestling mats can be done, and we can get by on the air conditioning units at JP Nat for another year by repairing them. They're just at an age right now where I don't want to trust them too much longer.
I just feel strongly about our track team being able to use their facilities, and the fact that they couldn't use them this year, which as it played out, they couldn't use anybody's, but
yeah,
you know, I want them to have a track next year.
Okay, I got a couple questions. So I got the capital budget, and I got the technology portion of the capital budget. So my first question is, yellow, is that cuts or is that already provided, other funding source option? What is yellow?
Yellow was the cut that we made initially, and then the orange came in as cuts that we did secondarily after we were told to cut another 30%.
What is on the technology paper? It says under yellow, it says cuts already provided or other funding source option. Is that only per that budget that yellow means that, or what? I'm confused. Are they all cuts?
A lot of money.
Mr. Craddock.
Yes, ma'am.
So on mine, which was a separate document, all of the yellow were what we cut initially. The green were what we were able to already give this year. And then the next column over with the lighter color green, those were additional cuts made from the reduction of that $400,000. When it says other funding sources option, I've applied for $200,000 worth of switches through E-rate. We are in the process of waiting to hear whether we will get approved for that. So any other options that I have for trying to meet the technology needs, I'm certainly seeking any and all options to meet our technology needs to keep our infrastructure up and to get devices that are outdated replaced because they're end of life or past end of life.
Yes, ma'am, and I appreciate those efforts. However, I'm looking at, if I'm not mistaken, currently on this document that's yours, it looks like Chromebooks for ninth graders at Currituck County High School, 280 of them needed. $72,520. COBA cut. Has that been cut, or has that been already purchased, or am I correct? Is that a cut?
Uh-oh,
You're still muted, Miss Reynolds. You're still muted.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Previous practice has been for devices to be purchased for sixth graders. Those were intended to only last 5 years. We had the previous practice of them going all the way up through seniors, which are past their life expectancy and past the insurance. So we were paying additional insurance expenses for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders, although our ninth graders who come here to NAP get a new device when they enter ninth grade. So my intention, based on lots of research with other districts and just end of life on these devices, was to be able to buy 2 sets a year, one for 5th grade that would go from 5th through 8th, and one from 9th grade, which would go 9th through 12th. They would then be covered under the initial cost of insurance that's embedded in the price through the company that we use, and those devices which have less
age on them could then be funneled down to the elementary schools where we are not close to 1-to-1 in the K2 grades yet. So when we had to cut the additional amount, that was where part of my cuts came from.
So yes, ma'am. So what you're saying is we have cut $72,520 for Chromebooks starting in the 9th grade.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And so I would prefer that we make sure we get that taken care of. I personally am looking at yellow, once again on yours, Matt, that is cuts, right? Is that what you said, right?
Yeah, it's the same as technology.
I understand the orange because it says it beside it, but I was just trying to gather my thoughts. So then we're seeing buildings, HVAC, $97,000, and it looks like $28,500 at JP now, because they're probably really inefficient and on life support, I would imagine.
They're very old, yes. The controls are legacy controls, and I luckily have some components stored from other projects that I can replace them with. They're not as important as the HVAC units that are very old, inefficient, and if you go looking for them, you have to walk into the closets in the classrooms and take a ceiling tile out and look up. They're hard to get to. They're hard to work on for my workers. I'm trying to make things a little bit more efficient and ergonomic for my employees too.
Okay, and so then we got 19-year-old wrestling mats that are $16,000 at one facility, that'd be Currituck County Middle, and I believe I saw 15 or 16,000 at the other facility. Is that correct?
Yeah, I believe it was 16 at both, 15 or 16.
So, well, yeah. 15 to 16. I was right.
Yeah.
All right, so we got 31,000 there. We're talking about 19-year-old mats. Okay, you know, that's their arena. That's what they operate on. So if I had it my way and we get that money, I don't want to not do the track, but I certainly don't want to upgrade the education equipment, and I certainly don't want to negate to spend $31,000 over 2 schools. That's going to have a tremendous impact on the wrestling program. And then I would like to see that we get the air conditioners fixed. They're ailing and inefficient, so we could save on maintenance, and the quality of life for all those students and administrators in that one building would be tremendously impacted. And then what I would propose is in these discussions, which we're going to have, we figure out a way to negotiate that track like we did the wall and fly that in on the other umbrella, because that's not a maintenance, that's a repair and replace, if you will. Because we're going to repair and replace the whole surface. We're not going to patch it, mend it, and Band-Aid it back together. And so that's my proposal.
I'm game for whatever you folks want to come up with to help the school system. I compile the list, and everything that comes off of it pains me, and I know it does the same with Reynolds. So whatever y'all can do to help, we appreciate it.
Well, you've done a great job as Ms. Reynolds, and I appreciate it. But when you look at how many people are impacted by some of these decisions and in what ways, all of them are important, and nobody wants to be adversely impacted. But anyway, that's how I'd spend the money if it was left up to me.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins.
Thank you all.
Well, before we move off of that,
Yes.
this is another document that the commissioners need next week. So, but there was just a lot of things put on the table by Mr. Crowder, how he wants to move forward with that. Because anything that he said add,
Do you want to go back with our original?
They would come back to that 250,000.
You put all those things I just mentioned, that would come up to nearly the 250, and then you put the track, in a special category like we did the wall, and it's gonna be excessive, but that's how we need to bridge.
Well,
That's it.
I'm concerned about putting that in a special category, and they're sitting here fussing about not having money. I'm worried we won't get it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What
Okay.
do we present it? Do we
I'm not
present it
willing
as
to
a-
put a track over Chromebooks that impacts the whole high
Is that a
school.
separate pot of money though?
No.
No,
Okay.
this all comes, the two pieces of paper together come out of our capital
Okay, well,
allocation.
I just wanted to make sure.
And I'm not willing to put a track over, I could do the 2 air conditioners, and I could do all the Chromebooks, and I could do the 2 schools and the wrestling.
Well, that would be that 2%, that 0.2%, that 31,000 would cover that.
Well, if we got that too, but that wasn't, I was asking.
Yeah, but
Well, we
should,
should.
we should get that one was something that they,
This is just
that was
typically, we get new ones.
that one
correct?
was supposedly in
Well,
the.
we've gone past the life expectancy and the insurance
We
expectancy.
kicked it off last year.
So
Wrestling
we
was
were
on there
paying for
last year.
insurance,
Yeah.
like additional years insurance like we do for a car.
Yes,
or you
ma'am,
actually
correct.
get
So
new
then we
car.
have 31,000
Get the
more
insurance
towards
on it.
that. So I'm saying I want
There's
to,
money both ways.
that's just my opinion.
Well, it sounds like we need to add more than 250,000 because we need all this stuff.
We're not gonna try.
Matt, your original, what we looked at before, your original, budget,
We were right at 1.4, and Ms. Reynolds and I split the 30% cut between us, percentage-wise.
all right, let me ask you this, do you think we should go back and submit that original 1.4?
I'm game for that, but in my position, I can't argue the point with the board or the county commissioner or the county manager, so that's gonna be on your plate if I do it.
I'd like to submit.
I'm at the will of I'm at their mercy.
Yeah, I'd like to submit it, and I know, we're reaching for the stars here, but submit it, and then let them review the list and say, okay, if it were up to you, what would you
Is this
cut?
going over these documents?
To let them know that this is it's important that we have to have these things, especially when you're talking about a track and for children's safety, that comes into play, and what kind of price are you gonna put on a child's safety? So I would like to submit it with the original plan, and then they'll come back, and when they do, maybe we could open up discussion with them and say, okay, here's our list, what do you think one need over another would be? And get their opinion. I mean,
So
It's
then
all
we're gonna
important.
have to re-vote on the budget that we're sending over that was just approved, because that budget that we're sending's got a different number.
Yeah, but that budget, we voted to have the interim budget, so that's a budget that will change. Will be
Yes, ma'am.
I can change that very easily. I already have it changed, and I was gonna send it over to you right now. I'll change it to 1.4 and then get that out to you right now.
Okay.
So what do you want to ask for, 1.45
Just so you all know,
or the 25,000?
They're not pushing, we're pushing it already. All right, that would be my motion, is to submit the capital outlay budget at 1.4 million without any reductions, and see what they say.
I second that.
Yeah, I have a first and second, any discussion?
I will do that as long as, the items are prioritized, the way that it is laid out.
Well, we're gonna try for all of it. and
Agreed.
If
But-
we
but-
have
but
to,
We can't,
because
what I was going to say is the original budget that we presented to you folks had already taken out the HVAC and controls for JP Knapp and left the track in, so we could prioritize those things up to the 1.4, but I don't know if we're going to fit all of that in.
that's what I was saying. Hold
Okay.
on, one last discussion, and I forgot to talk about this. Sorry. But we got playground equipment here at Central, and we got $27,000. We gave them $20,000 last year, and I went around there and looked at what they were collecting, and I want them to have playground equipment, and I want to give them the $27,000 more. The problem I'm having, the heartburn I'm having, is what they selected. It doesn't necessarily address the needs of a big portion of their population. So I would like to give them money, just want them to, rather than get one unit, I want something that can help our disadvantaged population. Also.
Who normally decides on the playground equipment? The principal and you, Matt?
No, that's done by the parent committee and the principal as a whole. I don't get involved.
Yeah, but the typical, and typical, I'm just saying, over the past 30 years, 50 years, playground equipment has pretty much come off of the district capital outlay because the districts couldn't afford it with all the HVAC needs and things like that. And so PTOs got in the middle of it and they raised money to do playground equipment. Depending on the size and the makeup of the schools, some of the PTOs can't raise the money because playground equipment isn't getting any cheaper. And so.
And 200 students versus 550, 600.
Right. So what you have is
more parent support.
Yeah. So you have you kind of a merged thing. You have some of the money coming from the district and some of the money coming from PTA. But the PTA groups are the ones that get together and they research what types of things they'd like to add to their playground equipment.
We got very little going on over there for special needs. And so I just want to make sure that they get something out of it.
Also, where Central is located,
They have a handicap. They have a
public
handicap
park.
parking.
They have a wonderful
Park over there.
facility for handicap.
Yes, ma'am, and I'm not sure that they're even thinking that way, and maybe that would be something that we could communicate.
Well, they walk them over they do swimming more than the rest of our group.
I was just sharing to you my experiences when I was over there speaking with some of the people that were the teachers with those groups.
Right. There used to be a separate pot of federal money that, actually when I was at Central, they had their own special playground. No more federal monies?
You're is that preschool?
3% that they give us.
It could have been preschool, but I think the special population used it as
It was
well.
for the preschool, I believe Ward 4 maybe?
Ward 4, yeah.
I'm not sure, but what I've done is we've looked at the price of playground equipment for Central Elementary. And just to have a cookie cutter playground equipment, I mean, you're talking about $30,000. It just doesn't get you a lot
I
of
agree.
money.
The 10,000 of it was installation. Is there any way that we could do that internally or get that out to some local contractor on make any kind of?
Matt, what do you think about that?
I was trying to calculate this capital budget and trying to listen at the same time. What was that now? I'm sorry.
So I think they're going to end up spending close to $50,000, rough, maybe 48, 49 for a place.
Yeah, for what they were looking at, from what I understand, I gave them a list of 3 or 4 that I knew of, and I don't know which one they have chosen, or which company they've chosen. I know the one that Millioc Elementary School got, or worked with, the company they worked with, they got theirs for right around $30,000. And if you've probably all seen it, that's what you get for $30,000. If they're wanting a larger set, a larger play area, then 50 is probably in right range.
10,000 of it was for installation. Is that something we might better install ourselves or outsource?
I don't doubt that my crew can do it, but there's a lot of liabilities involved in playground equipment, and I'd rather a company take that liability and do it the way they always do it, and us not try to figure it out.
Yes,
Plus, I'm dealing with, when I take on projects like that, I take away from the maintenance of the schools. So I do as much as I can, but I don't take on larger things unless I have to.
Yes, sir. I didn't know if possibly that might be something one of your contractors might be able to do for a fraction of the cost, or you just want to stay clear of that altogether, it sounds like.
No, I mean, I can tell you that one of my landscaping contractors has taken that stuff on many times. So I could ask him if he's felt comfortable installing it.
Just food for thought. I don't know.
We can do that. I can check into it. I'd have to have the plans and see if we can do it cheaper. I don't want to negate the warranty on the item by them not installing it. I'd have to look at the paperwork.
Yeah, we probably don't even want to tread in those waters then. It's probably a bad idea.
Well, it's always worth asking.
Thank you, Mr. Mullins. Okay, roll call vote for our capital outlay budget with the amended. Ms. Craft?
Yes.
Mr. Cronick?
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
Dr. Downing?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Okay.
I realize y'all just voted. Before we move on, I need to clarify what you want me to add back in. Because if we add the air conditioning, the controls, the track, Miss Reynolds, $72,000, and the wrestling mats, we're at $423,500.
Right.
Ah.
Remember the list I gave you?
That's the one. That's the one you want.
First.
I mean, I can do it that way, or I can cut the controls and get right at 1.4 and do it next year.
I think
That would be nice.
Yeah, if you said that you saved some pieces of the controls and you might be able to.
I can get through another year on that building with the controls if you want me to put that into next year's budget. And that'll put us right at 1.4.
That sounds like,
Let's do
that sounds like the way to
Thank
go.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll do that.
Would it be helpful if I included a narrative explaining the technology portion? Would that be useful? when it goes over?
Yes.
Okay, I'll do that.
Maybe some of them have sixth graders or freshmen or
I
somebody.
think a lot of times the information that we provide, and I deal with this with real estate, we assume that clients know what we're talking about. But I think the more we can explain it and describe what the cost and what it's going towards, the better. Just so that there's that open communication with every item. And that's a great idea. Thank you very much. So motion carries on the capital outlay budget. Superintendent search. As everyone knows, we are going to start our superintendent search. And we have a timeline that Ms. Mackin, thank you so much for all your hard work on this. We have a timeline that we're going to follow, and this can change, but May 10th will be our advertising start date, May 10th. And so then we have the survey dates, application dates, review of applications, and so on. So we're trying to follow a timeline so that we can hire our new superintendent, hopefully by mid-August. And I just wanted everyone to be aware that that's going to be happening very soon, to just be on the lookout and different avenues of where we're going to be advertising and on our county website as well.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjust this timeline so that we can possibly have a superintendent in place by the 31st of July.
Our interviews are going to be finished on July 14th, and so, we certainly, either that week or the following week, we ought to be able to do the.
Dr. Donnelly suggested that the last time they met after the second day of interviews.
The 14th.
After the last interview.
Made the decision.
We sure did.
So, we could combine those two things.
Okay.
And then maybe on the 21st of July, have contract discussions. And
That happened, we could be ready.
we could be ready by the 31st to announce and introduce their superintendent.
Can I have a motion?
Second.
Juan, you seconded the motion. All right, any discussion?
No.
Okay. Ms. Kraft?
I vote that we stick with, or that we adjust the timeline.
All right, Mr. Product,
Yes.
Dr. Dominic,
Yes.
Ms. Rose?
Yes.
And I vote in favor of that as well. Motion carries.
Do we-
Is H really needed?
I'm gonna, yeah.
What did you say?
You wanna have a heart attack in the room, don't you? Yes, it is.
What, I missed that. What did you say?
I said, is item H really
H
needed
really
today?
needed.
H, it is
Did you-
needed. I
Hang
think
on.
we've got a lot of folks listening.
Well, do we just conclude that whole, discussion on G?
Yes,
That done?
yes.
Oh, all right.
Okay. Prom and graduation ceremony for 2020.
I'd like to make a motion on that. I'd like to make a motion that, we proceed with some good planning on the date that's already established, June 5th, and get the show on the road. That's my motion.
With any changes or any,
If we have to, let the
COVID-19
parents move the
restrictions?
bleachers around, and if we have to, limit the amount of, tickets, and limit the amount of tickets, and somebody has extra, they can share them with their people.
Well, actually, this is discussion. It
Yeah, this
doesn't
is-
call for action.
I want to make action, I want to get the show
well,
on the
okay,
road.
well, wait a minute, let's not put the cart before
We have
the
some
horse.
discussion
All right, we
too.
want to discuss it, okay, what else would you like to discuss? Dustin, you want to go ahead
He's
and
made the
move forward with the
motion, so-
motion? Okay,
I can set the motion aside if you want. We
Thank
can
you.
discuss
All
it.
right.
Yes, ma'am.
okay,
I'll withdraw the motion.
okay. All right,
Well, here's my thing. We heard from a lot of different people. We heard from parents, but let's talk about this. It's graduation. And so I think that we need to be listening to the majority of them. And have we sent the survey out?
We have Ms. Dowdy and the two principals ready to give some information if the board's ready to listen to them.
I think that's
Okay.
right.
Ms. Dowdy, would you chime in, please?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, I think it's very important to keep in mind that we have two graduation ceremonies that we are needing to discuss. JP Knapp's original graduation date is scheduled for May 22nd. Currituck County High School's graduation date is scheduled for June the 5th. So I think that it's extremely important that as we're proceeding with discussions, that we heard from quite a few Currituck County High School students and parents in the public comment section. We also have to keep in mind that we have a NAP early college graduation that is due to take place prior to Currituck County High School. So just to put that out there as far as let's not lose sight that we have two graduation ceremonies moving forward. We know in your little packet of flyers, I just put a couple of handouts. One is the last guidance from the state Department of Public Instruction in conjunction with the State Board of Education. Just some points to consider as we think through graduation and planning for graduation. And then just again, a little one-sheeter about the things that we've already begun discussing amongst ourselves as administrative staff, keeping in mind. I will say that my administrative career was spent as a high school principal, and there is absolutely nothing more important, I think, than getting to stand on that stage in COA's auditorium or getting to stand in Knight Stadium as the sun is setting and a crowd of 2,500 or 3,000 people are there to cheer on the graduates. There is nothing that can replace what that feeling is like for a student, for a parent, for a faculty member, for a principal, and for everybody else that's there to witness that special event. So we absolutely recognize in our discussions that nothing can replace the traditional ceremony except the traditional ceremony. So again, what we have to keep in consideration is a lot of what you heard in that public comment section. What will restrictions look like on June the 5th or May 22nd? Again, keeping May 22nd as the first date. What are the restrictions going to look like as of May 22nd? What will they look like as of June 5th? Come July, come August. So those are all the things that we have up in the air that none of us know the answer to, unfortunately. The guidance that was issued is in your hands. We also talked about the special circumstances for students, many of which were hit on by the public comment section. Our military kids who are getting ready to enlist and have report dates that are already in stone, and students who will be leaving. So the more we postpone, the greater likelihood that some of our students may not be able to participate because of military athletes who are going off to play sports, if they are allowed to come the fall at the university or community college, as well as the reality that when the workforce reopens, many of our kids are going to have to go to work, as well as their families are, to help support what's going on and the damage that's been done, if it has, to these circumstances at home. So we've talked about those things as an administrative staff. And then obviously, if we postpone past a teacher workday, then we have no staff who are on hand to assist with graduations and would have to pull in volunteers at that point. Now, again, we wholeheartedly would agree, as I'm sure Dr. Matney and Ms. Fallon would say, that if we held graduation in July or August, we could put the call out there and most of our staff would respond to be there for the kids, because we're all there for the kids. But again, it is a consideration because it is past the 215 workday. So how do we acknowledge that they have volunteered their time for those events? And then again, last on the list of considerations, the students come first and foremost. But at the end of that, we do have some considerations about the mountainous amount of work and preparations that we have to move forward. So I think the longer we put things off, the scarier it feels for everybody, only because it's still so uncertain. And I think some of the kids talked about closure in their arguments, and everybody's looking for closure at this. Everybody's wanting to know, when is remote learning stopping? Everybody's wanting to know, when are we going to have graduation? Everybody wants to know, when are these things going to be done and over with? Because this is just, it feels like we're all in like Groundhog Day. And every day we wake up and we're like, what day is it? Was it Monday? Is it Tuesday? We don't know. So we've had all these discussions. We did ask our principals to send out surveys to their students. Both Knapp and the high school have sent out surveys to their kids and got some feedback from them, as well as some comments. So I'll allow Dr. Matney and Ms. Fallon to chime in with anything that they would like to add to the discussion for today.
Denise, you want to commence or I'll go?
I'll let you go
Okay.
first, since most of the public comment
Yes.
addressed Currituck High School, if
Yes,
that's okay
ma'am.
with you.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. We have sent out a survey. About half of the student body, just over 100 circa folks have responded. I think decidedly, again, everyone would prefer the June 5th date. As Ms. Dowdy has alluded to, if that's the route we go, assuming restrictions will be lifted, we probably needed to commence with planning on that yesterday. As you all know, that is a Herculean task. It's a labor of love, but it is very, very involved. So what we did and what we came from the survey is assuming that June 5th might not be a possibility. If I'm looking at my numbers correctly, 65% of those who've responded, of again, about the half of the student body or the senior class that's responded to date, would prefer delaying graduation to July, so that they could have, in fact, pound for pound, a similar type of event. 21%, surprisingly, and I think they might just be trying to pull my leg here, said that it really didn't matter to them. I don't believe that. I think it matters greatly to them. So that number was a little bit perplexing to me. Only 11% said that a late date of August would be palatable to them. As Ms. Dowdy and Ms. Fallon and I have talked at length, it is important to bring some closure. But again, I'm sort of thinking if you get past mid-July, I really feel like that we've really passed the mark of being able to do something. It's just too far removed. Too many children are not involved. But that's the nature of the discussions that we have had and the input that we have garnered to date from the senior class.
Denise, you're still muted. Denise, take yourself off mute.
Okay, sorry about that. Dr. Matney, I just wanted to add to that because as an administrator that formerly worked at Currituck High School as a staff member, just a teacher and an administrator that planned graduation, um, I mean, it's hot enough in June when you're outside doing graduation, and I would be really worried about having a graduation outside in July and August. We always had to set up a first aid tent to care for people because dehydration was a serious issue. So that is something I think you also need to consider when you think about that postponing. Where would you have that event? And if it's inside, of course, you're going to have to limit the number of people who can attend. Here at NAP, we also did a survey. And again, like Dr. Matney said, about half of our students, our seniors that are graduating, responded. Some of the comments about graduation in general, we only had 2, I'd say, from those 30 that were just adamant. They want it just to be exactly like it's always been. Most of the feedback that we got from students seemed to be that the students realize that this is a different time, that they can't have that exact same graduation ceremony, but they did have some priorities, things that they thought were important. And those were some of the same things that I heard people talking about in those letters that Ms. Dowdy read. Those things included, I want to have graduation with my friends and family present. The original date, again, having that closure. They want a graduation ceremony that's as close to traditional, I guess, as it can be, to have those traditional components, to have those guest speakers, to be able to see their friends walk across the stage. Some of the comments, 15 of the students said that they being celebrated and recognized at an off-campus location would be okay, with family members watching, members of the Spartan faculty and staff participating, and others invited to join digitally. And so what I see is some sort of hybrid sort of graduation ceremony. They seem to be okay with. So 15 said that. 5 of those said, 5 additional students said that they would be okay with the virtual. Some of the comments made, one actually called it a semi-traditional type of graduation, something close to how it usually would be, knowing that, again, things are going on where it can't be just like it always is. One student said, none of this online stuff. And I think one of the things that concerns me is I get this feeling that these discussions that I've seen post on Facebook, and I've seen things on the news, and I've heard people talk, and it's like I get the feeling that they think we're going to just not have anything. It's just somebody's going to say it's over. And I think that happened at a lot of universities, and it was very disappointing for students. And I think that's the fear that our graduates have. I had that conversation this morning with a parent when I dropped off a sign. And my response to her is, we're going to do something. I don't know what it is right now, but we're just not going to say it's over. See you later. So again, our students want that closure. They want a semi-traditional ceremony. They want those traditional components. One of the things, we hold our ceremony at the COA auditorium, and when I called there to check on the availability of that venue, possibly if we postponed, at that time they only had 3 available dates in July. And then the discussion was COA has postponed their graduation to, I think it's July 30th. And so those dates that they had available were a couple of days, like the week before that. But I fear that they're going to end up canceling that graduation. I'm a little surprised that they've postponed it. So again, if we had it here, we could certainly do that if we postponed. But again, you know, we don't really have the facility and the size to do that. And again, with my graduation date getting closer and closer, May 22nd, I don't know what those government guidelines are going to be from the governor for me to host a traditional graduation anyway.
Ms. Fallon, with you saying that you typically do graduation at the COA's auditorium.
Yes.
Have you guys started conversations about possible outside venues because it gives you a little more flexibility with the numbers?
Yes, I actually have been thinking about this a whole lot. So when we started getting feedback from students and I started talking to different principals, especially as part of that early college network, I'm trying to find out what people are doing. One of the venues I went and looked at, the whole idea of the drive-in movie theater sort of event, like a lot of churches are doing for their services since they can't meet. I thought about that. So I went over to the YMCA and looked at that parking lot and tried to imagine, okay, could we use this? Is it big enough? And so if you're at the YMCA and that where the Parks and Recreation building is and the senior center, I call that main parking lot. There are enough spaces there for every graduate to have 3 guest vehicles. Now that doesn't include all that space over there in front of the extension center or some of that side parking at the YMCA, just that main area. That's enough for everybody to have 2 vehicles. I know that the high school uses the stage that Currituck has. We could use that stage. I really think we could make that work. And students could still walk across the stage. Now we'd have to develop a protocol for students, getting out of the vehicles, and you don't want them too close and you don't want too many at one time and that sort of thing. So I think that would work. One of the things I thought about too, and I would hope to get some support from the community is, I know at Christmas, when you ride around and look at the Christmas lights, some of the people have their music, their Christmas lights blink to the music and they're tuned into an AM radio station to do that. So I don't know how we could get help maybe with a radio station to broadcast our ceremony so that, yes, we'd have a speaker system, but you could still hear it if you were in your vehicle and the radio. And of course, we'd still do the live stream so people that weren't there could view it. Or if you wanted to look at it from your phone, you could do that too. I'd like to follow up with a little parade off of that campus, out of that facility, for our graduates as well. And then the other possibility would to be a modified type of graduation ceremony here on this campus. And I don't know how we could make that work with the limitations we have right now with the number of people who can attend at one time, other than it would be the student and their immediate family there for their diploma presentation. And we have to pre-record some of the speeches and that sort of thing for both of those. But I think there are lots of possibilities. But I can say this, Mr. Stefanik, I've thought of a lot of things and I've talked it over with some staff and, again, gotten some ideas from other places. But I would most definitely involve the students in the planning of this event before we move forward.
I would just add, again, done a lot of research and talking to colleagues who, as Ms. Fallon has suggested, have kind of moved towards a drive-in sort of approach. And what I'm about to share is nothing formal, not in a survey, but it is anecdotal, knowing that we can't have everything replicated exactly. The big theme I'm catching from parents and students is they want to be together.
Yes, I agree.
And we've heard these models where, you come in shifts and you have 10 students come in to receive their diploma. And I know just what an important, impactful experience that is, walking across that stage. But we know, even in the best of times, there's not going to be a handshake. There's not going to be what's traditional there. So I've just kind of, in talking and conversing with folks, even today on our sign distribution, again, if you had to pick, if you can't have it all, if you had to pick, again, smaller groups or what have you, walking across the stage or being brought together, hopefully, again, there's a plot of land, preferably concreted, so we're not beholden to the weather, where, again,
We could be on that platform doing everything like we always do as far as speeches and those kind of things. But folks would be in their cars. And what they would miss on that, and what I, talked to a friend in suburban Richmond, talked to a friend of mine out in Oregon. What they're going to do there is they are going to bring everybody together, since that seems to be what those classes want. All they'd be foregoing is the actual coming across the stage for a diploma. They call every name. They give folks a few seconds to kind of enthusiastically cheer for that individual. But again, that would allow everybody to come together. It would just be sans the traditional walking across the stage.
Ms. Fallon, do you anticipate being able to do your graduate? I mean, it sounds like you really thought a lot about this on May 22nd.
Well, I'll tell you, no, but just because of some of the restrictions that are in place right now, I don't know that it can happen on May 22nd. I'd love for it to, but I was really looking at maybe the week after that. That Monday, May 25th is Memorial Day holiday. So even if it's one of those days in the week following that, if we couldn't do it on May 22nd, then certainly one of those days in the week following. But I would love to do it on May 22nd if we could. The other thing I want to say about that May 22nd date that was a thought in my head, because it is the Friday before Memorial Day. And see, typically we're in Elizabeth City. We're not in Currituck County, so I don't have to worry about beach traffic. I would have to worry about that now. And I have to be honest with you, I would be terrified. And so I would actually prefer in that situation to wait till maybe the 28th is the Thursday the following week. That would make me feel better, just as a mom of 4 young people who drive. So if we could do that, I think that would probably be the smarter thing to do, just because of the logistics and it being Memorial Day weekend.
And I would add, Denise and I have talked to this with Renee at length. We are different. We're smaller, but we also understand that there's a need to be terribly, terribly comparable, albeit perhaps at different times. But we want to make sure that what we offer is, again, equitable, and that there's not where people walk away thinking that one group got a whole lot more than the other. So we've made a commitment to one another not to try to outdo one another, or try to keep up with the Joneses. But that too is of course a factor that that we've talked about.
And I agree with Dr. Matney. I can tell you that I think it's more important, especially for students, to be with their classmates during this time and to share some of those things together from that traditional ceremony, hearing that pomp and circumstance, cheering each other on, that sort of thing is very important to those students.
Well, when we ask our students, and I'm sure Denise did it as well, what do they miss the most? It was decidedly, I miss my friends.
Yes.
Decidedly, I miss my friends. They want to be with their peers, and of course, they want mom and dad there and family and that sort of thing. But they want to be with their peer group.
I just want to add one other thing. So a couple of the letters that were read earlier talked about the kids that go in the military. And of course, I have 2 children that are in the military, and I have twins, a boy and a girl, and they graduated from Currituck High School, and one went off to boot camp the first week in July. And if we had postponed graduation that year, he would not have graduated with his twin. And yeah, they want to be with their friends, but there's a lot of things that go on that we don't think about, So if people have made plans, and if we could stick to those dates that are in place, I think that's probably the best way to go, because you just don't know.
How many graduating seniors do you have, Ms. Fallon?
I have 63.
Okay. I took it upon myself to call Mr. Betts, the Albemarle Regional Health Director, yesterday.
Okay.
And we talked about different phases and what have you. And, phase 1 starts May 8th and opens up. And we still can't have large gatherings of people during phase one.
Right.
We'll be in that phase for 2 to 3 weeks, he said. So the earliest that we could get out of that and move on to phase two is May 22nd.
Right.
And in that phase, we can only have 50 people together.
Right.
So if you have your graduation on May 22nd, that means your whole class couldn't be together.
Well, again, and I would want to do the drive-through where they're not, they're in their cars, they're not out of their vehicles more. Actually, my plan was not out of their vehicles more than 10 at a time. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
And they're
Yeah.
driving churches now,
So-
so they
Mhm.
oh, that
Ms. Fallon,
is Friday.
Yes,
what date is it that you like to shoot for?
I would like to, Thursday, May 28th.
Okay.
Yeah, she said.
And then, if we did a, walk across the stage in June, Dr. Matney, what is the earliest things we would have had to start planning yesterday for June 5th? When will we be able to accomplish that?
Well, if that is the pleasure of the board,
Phase two is 50.
you know, I'd put out the clarion call tomorrow morning. Just to kind of decide, because there would be some parameters still being in phase one on how we would, typically as master of the obvious, you could teach me lessons on, we have 243 candidates for graduation. In normal times, we bring all 243 together and we, go through protocol and how we're going to go through the pomp and circumstance. I mean, I guess we could do it in what, less than or equal to 50. But again, if that's the pleasure of the body, we would hustle. And again, like I say, we would start the planning process tomorrow.
So
back to Mr. Betts, phase three at the earliest, best case scenario, is scheduled to lift around June 5th. And I believe they're opening up phase one at 5 p.m. on this coming Friday.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow. So if they lifted it, that's the best case scenario. At 5 p.m. At which point we could have a larger number of folks gathered. I think now maybe 100 to 200 is what they were saying. Even in phase three, if we did June 5th, which would not accommodate our graduating class in high school. And then they said possibly, stay in phase three for a good while. And I understand what you're saying. I know our folks would like what I'm hearing from seniors and parents. They would love to have it on the original date, but not at the expense of foregoing what a ceremony. There's certain parts they want to this ceremony. One being together and another having friends and family there. And, I myself I agree with them on that. Our seniors have missed out on so much already, being with their friends in the sports, the seniors with softball, baseball, track, soccer. Not to mention, they got slapped in the face with that P19 grade. They couldn't even choose. Prom, we haven't even talked about that yet. Senior picnic. I think we should try and, I did hear from some seniors. It's not just parents that I've heard from. I've heard from some seniors. They want it. I myself would like to see us I want it as soon as possible too, but, and I don't think July is a great idea, but I think later in June might give us the opportunity to provide them with a graduation ceremony that is more like what they're accustomed to. That's just my thoughts on it.
Ms. Esther, Mullins, can I any seconds on the high school graduation a little bit?
Yes, please.
I just need to know as soon as possible because typically by now I have reserved the stage from the county. I've reserved the chairs from the chair rental place, and I have a sound man all lined up. So whatever, I did none of that because I didn't know where this was going, and I honestly feel like everybody thought it was going to be gone. So whatever happens, Dr. Matney, I will push with you to do whatever I can to get you what you need.
Yes, sir. And again, Matt, you were very gracious last year. You know, we had that. We had to be prepared. You set up 2 venues,
Yeah,
stadium and a gym, and I imagine that too could be very much a dilemma when we're at the mercy of Mother Nature.
Exactly.
Good, and also one more thing for Ms. Fallon. I know she's talking about outside venues. If we're doing different dates for JP Knapp students in Currituck County High School, would your students, would you not be able to use the Currituck County High School as a venue and accommodate more students and parents there than possibly on your grounds?
You mean my gymnasium?
I'm really talking about even their football field up at Currituck County High School for your, have you thought about that?
I did think about, Miss Dowdy and I talked about using the auditorium at Currituck Middle School. We had talked about that at one point, but we did not talk about using the football field. And I have to be honest with you, I don't know how my students would feel about graduating from the other high school. I'm just going to be honest about it. I don't know, you know, I'm sorry, but I don't know how they feel about that. And that was one of the things too. If they couldn't have it where we normally have it, I think it's important to either have it here at Knapp and the YMCA. You know, I talked about when we leave together, my plan would be for them to go by that RATSI building because my students have spent a lot of time in that COA campus over by the YMCA. So I thought maybe that would work for them.
So how are they doing it in,
Did you think about Elizabeth City State? Did anybody check into that venue?
I did not, no.
So,
well, and I did not because I think that campus is closed completely. That university campus is closed completely.
Well, they're opening back up according to the information we got this week from some of the things with their buildings, but.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. But no, I did not check that venue.
Like both principals are pretty much on top of it. But why don't we let them go ahead and do it?
Dr. Matney, how many seniors do you have?
Yes, ma'am. We have 243 candidates for graduation.
So, yeah, that's.
So I'm just wondering, how are they doing it at Camden? And does anybody have any idea how many students they have?
yes, sir. Mr. Product, Camden County High School has decided to do the modified individualized ceremonies, bringing kids in individually to walk across the stage with guest tickets up to 5 to 6. They haven't decided that yet. So they'll get the traditional pomp and circumstance individually with family present, but it will be modified individual ceremonies.
Okay, so it's not even what I had been brought to believe it was.
You know, another venue that I was thinking about, Denise, when you were talking about outside venue, I was thinking about Dennis Anderson.
That's funny. Karen, Angela Rodriguez literally just sent me a text message as we were talking about venues, because while the YMCA would work for Ms. Fallon and the early college, it clearly would not be big enough to hold the high school. So Angela said, hey, what about Dennis Anderson? He's a huge supporter of our school and our students. Muddy Motorsports is that huge field. Could we do a drive-in with the stage set up in Muddy Motorsports and do what Denise is talking about doing for the early college with the high school there?
And I was thinking, I'm just sitting here in my mind brainstorming. You know, traditionally, when we've had our high school graduations, everybody dresses up. When you think of a drive-in movie theater, you think of Dennis Anderson, Gravedigger, and everything. You think of more dressing down. You know, just a good time, a celebration.
It's gonna be hot.
And well, that's another thing, dressing down. You know, but you could make it. You could put a spin on it, maybe casual dress because you are going to be in the middle of a field. But that's just one option.
But you're going to be in your.
So I think one of the other key things I want to finish up with is Ms. Fallon and Dr. Matney have done a ton of work and have been very much proactive in thinking about all the different options that could happen to celebrate their kids. We also know that we need to make a decision because anxiety breeds frustration, which brings angst, and then it just doesn't help. So I think that we all want some type of idea of like, here's our plan moving forward. It could change, but at least then we have a plan and people can plan for the plan.
Okay.
Well, at least we know that we're going to have a graduation.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we know that the needs are different at the two schools, certainly with the number of graduates in itself. But I would just like for you to do as much as you can for both graduating classes.
And I think that you absolutely will have that commitment to these folks because they've already been working on that right now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, so I agree that you guys have done a wealth of investigation and thought on this, but I got the May 28th date out of Ms. Fallon. Dr. Matney, what date is it that you would desire?
Well, in an ideal world, yes, sir. I'd love June 5th. And again, if it has to be delayed before the month of June elapses.
What date would you like to shoot for if you were the one making the decision right now?
June.
I didn't hear the last. Denise is delaying hers by a week. Are you delaying yours or are you going with?
Well, and I just want to just add, I'm doing that because mine falls on Memorial Day weekend, that Friday. Right. And I just think it's important to do that. I'm sorry, Dr. Matney. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, ma'am. I think a week delay would give us a little breathing room. I will share, I'm used to high school graduations in the past in a football stadium in the latter half of June. And it is terribly hot, but it is eminently doable.
Well, how about instead of the weekend, because I know the beach is gonna open up and traffic on that weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe. Could you possibly do it Tuesday the 4th, Dr. Matt?
Or the 11th.
I couldn't hear. Was it June 4th, Ms. Etheridge?
Would June 4th or June 11th be a better Thursday to shoot?
June 11th, if you're looking.
Right. I do. Yeah, I didn't have a calendar in front of me. Of course, a weekday would be far preferable to anything. Yes. Yeah. So X -1, 7 -1, 6, 11.
Right.
June 11th?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
And help me, Ms. Rose, particularly since you've got talked to the source on the health department, we would, in the midst of that window on June 11th, be in phase 2.
We would be in phase
3.
Phase 3. And the conjecture there is the limit would be 100 to 200?
Well, not necessarily.
No.
It's like when they had larger gatherings, that's what it had been. But the governor is saying, phase 3, we may be wide open.
I think
at that point.
We're hoping. I think we should shoot for we're wide open.
Yeah.
With a backup plan if you're not.
But definitely phase 3 is better than phase 2 as far as, phase 3 things are supposed to be really good. So maybe, that will work out for our children.
How'd you guess?
With that being said, we've got a couple of other senior things.
Can we, I want to make a motion to approve the 2 dates they just selected and
let them go forward with the plan.
Yeah. Vote on this? Okay.
all right, so I want to make a motion that we go with the 28th date for JPN and the 6/11 date for Currituck County High School. And they're going to figure it out. And if it doesn't work out, we'll keep you updated and they'll come up with a backup plan.
I second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? I had made plans to be out of town that week. Not that that makes a big difference, but I just want to disclose to you that this isn't something that I'm skipping out on. Because
You can watch the live stream
on your phone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I attended the graduation. That's why I made my plans afterwards, but this would be the week that I'd be gone. But of course, whatever works for everyone concerned, my hope and wish is that we can have graduation and have these kids walk across that stage. So whatever works for everyone is fine with me.
And I'd like to say that if it comes down to it, and you're at 200 and some, and you need a couple extra seats, I'll give my seat up for somebody or somebody's family member if it's need be, okay?
Well, and I think we all need to do that. You know,
Absolutely.
if it means the difference between.
Kenny, you're not gonna give your seat up?
If it means the difference between family members being able to be there and faculty.
Right.
Yeah, I don't even think we'll be able to sit like we would normally sit. I mean, distancing, it's all good. All those details will need to be worked out. But I think the main thing right now is that we have 2 dates to
Shoot
show.
for.
Yeah, the 28th of May and June 11th. So I have a first and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
We
got
Got a roll call. All right. Ms. Kraft,
I am in agreement with those dates.
Yes.
Mr. Craddock, Dr. Downey.
Yes.
Yes.
Rose. Okay, motion carries for those 2 dates, May 28th and June 11th. Then y'all just work out the fine details.
And
Okay.
No, don't make us happy. You make everybody. that's been
Everybody else
emailing
happy.
back, everybody happy.
the seniors and the parents.
No pressure.
Right. Honey, do you wanted to hit on any of those other activities, one of which happened today, and some of the other listings of things for seniors?
So I think prom was one of the other things that got mentioned quite a bit in the conversations. Graduation was most certainly the preference for everybody that completed the surveys for both high schools. And talking with both Ms. Fallon and Dr. Matney, prom was one of those things that we were going to recommend to be canceled just because it is too difficult to plan a prom without a venue, not knowing whether or not we were going to be able to gather those kids together. You can't quite keep social distance when you're dancing, especially with high school students, perhaps. So, and not only that, if we postpone that, those kids have technically graduated, and our ability to, I think, chaperone, it takes on a different turn. It just does, because they really aren't our students, but they're on our campus. So it's still a little bit different. So those were just the things that we considered. And we just felt like we had yeoman's work to try to get graduation and do that right. And so that's why we opted to say our recommendation would be to cancel prom. And that is in line with every other district that we've been in communication with. That was the first thing that unfortunately had to go in most districts.
Yeah, I think the thing that I remember from prom mainly is getting dressed up and going out to dinner with my date and getting together with my other friends. And I think they can do that with smaller groups. And because that's what they would have done anyway. I know we're still taking the fun of the venue and the music, but maybe they could still get dressed up and go out to dinner and celebrate with their closest friends. I know that's not the same, but we're in such dire times right now. I'm just thinking of what they could still do to make that night special.
Yeah. And I think, again, we know the work that's in front of us, and not only just planning for graduation, but planning for end of the year and transition and everything else that's going on. It's these folks before you have a monumentous task ahead of them. And so while we recognize if we could give every kid the world, we most certainly would. That's the way we operate as educators. We just have to prioritize, and graduation we felt like was that which took the most emphasis moving forward.
Is that what the survey showed? Most kids did want that over. I know that they had a choice of what meant the most to them. And
Yes.
I know a lot of They
Our,
are this prom.
our question was worded in such a way, what are you most looking forward to? 73%, nearly 3 and 4 graduation, 19% prom, 8% picnic.
I know prom is important. I know a lot of parents have spent money on dresses that are non-returnable. And I'm sorry that we can't do it.
Right. And I'll say from my survey, only a third of my students that responded even listed prom as a concern. So a third, yeah, 10 out of my 30. And it wasn't their first thought. Only 3 said it was really important. It was like a second option or below before the other ones.
What about baccalaureate? Have we thought anything about that?
I have thought about that, and that is planned by our community churches, and so I have not reached out to them. I don't know, maybe Dr. Matney, if they might want to do some sort of combined thing because it's not mandatory that they attend, but that's a church service that they do, and I haven't reached out to our partner on that because I really didn't know where we were with all that.
And I too have yet to have conversation. I love baccalaureate.
Me too. It's my favorite.
It's wonderful. Vic Ramsey, but I have not yet reached out to him. Again, would love to know, but I don't want to put out false hope either. So I want to handle that with some calm.
What type of participation do you normally have for that night? I know that not all seniors participated. Do you have half the class, 3/4?
No. For NAP, it's very low participation.
Last year, and again, that being my only perspective, I think it was circa 30%, maybe a tad bit lower.
Yeah, mine is lower than that.
I know it's just another opportunity for our seniors to wear caps and gowns
right
together. And what about senior night, awards night? Have you thought about that?
So I have thought about that, and because my numbers are lower, what I've thought about is, so when I have my ceremony and I call their name, typically at NAP, so I'll read their name, and then I'll, if they're top 10, I'll announce that. Since the COA graduation is not prior to our graduation like it typically is, I will announce their associate degree or their certification or whatever, because we normally do that at senior recognition. And then I think I'm going to do any recognitions or awards, again, when I call their name, so that's announced. And then, so when they come get their diploma cover off that table, they can pick up their awards and stuff too. And so that way they're still recognized. It's not the same way. And we normally do a lot more than that at JP Knapp, but at least we've got that, again, that bit of normalcy, I guess, and that bit of tradition that can still go on.
We are planning on the heels of what you may have already seen in the way of a video vignette that went out in the last 24 hours, going back and trying to make up for a missed winter sports season awards night. Christina Redlin, our new director of guidance, is, again, as Renee said, doing yeoman's work. Our plan was to do something again in the way of a video vignette, where, again, names are announced, approbation is given, rewards recognized. Again, having people be able to see it that way.
Mm-hmm. And this is not related to seniors, but what about our underclassmen with awards? Any thoughts on what I know that's a big night.
So at NAP, we've talked about that, and we're not going to hold a ceremony for our underclassmen. And a lot of our awards, some of them are based on, they are in the winter anyway, on their performance on those EOCs, but we'll do a few and just send those home with report cards. We will not have the number that we normally have, but we still will do that recognition for those students, and again, send that home with them with their report card.
In that same spirit, having compared notes with the good Ms. Fallon, that was going to be our tact as well.
Mm-hmm.
make sure there's some recognition, certainly not as expansive or as, widespread as it typically is. But again, to have, whether we use social media outlets, whether we use short little video vignettes, or whether we use profile, like many school divisions are doing for their, their spring student athletes, something along those lines.
Right. Sounds like y'all are on the ball there. Ms. Dowdy, what about the countywide senior parade? How are we going with that?
Yep. So I talked with Deputy Walker. We've got a meeting set up for later this week. I talked with Dr. Matney and Miss Fallon, and we are looking at the dates May 19th, 20th, and 21st as potential dates. Waiting on confirmation with the sheriff's office to review those dates first and foremost, and then we will start the logistical planning of that. Everybody agreed that was kind of a cool idea, and we'll see how we can plan that out and get that in advance notice so that everybody can participate in that. Another opportunity to wear your cap and gowns, hang out of your car window, hope your cap doesn't blow off, but do something like that to be recognized in our community from north to south and cross in the middle, hopefully something like that.
If you'll let us know as soon as you decide a date, we can get the word out. And I know I've talked with Bob White, the county commissioners are behind us. And maybe we can get all of our county residents to line the highway.
Absolutely. We will do a lot of PR for that once we set that date and get the logistics worked out.
I do want to give a shout out to you all, both high schools that came around with faculty and staff members today with the signs. That was very awesome. I've seen a lot of folks excited about that. Well, I believe 8 individuals and the Moyoc Women's Club who donated the money for that. So hat off to all those individuals.
Yes, thank you for that, for the Moyoc Women's Club. That is greatly appreciated.
I echo those sentiments.
Great organization.
Much appreciated.
And with that, what's your shirt say?
My shirt says, "Senior Mom, can you tell?"
Yay!
And I honestly feel like, I taught a lot of these kids too. And I've probably had more seniors reach out to me than any of the other board members because my daughters
All of mine are in college.
and my daughters grow up with them. And, I do feel for this group. I'm just, they're really upset about having the A in the class. Not having a choice of taking that A. They just get slapped with that P19.
Right.
And Ms. Patty, please let the officials know at the State Department that we're not happy about that.
Well, I will have to just put a little bug out. There was rumor passing around that the state board is meeting, and potentially could it be discussed, not be discussed? There was a rumor that perhaps it would get discussed again, but don't hold me to that.
And I would add, I hope it would not be seen as too presumptuous, but any number of those good faculty members at Currituck County High School have already written and articulated those very sentiments to the powers that be in Raleigh.
And I have done as well. I've called the State Department. I've called the governor's office. I've called Senator Steinberg and Representative Anne.
I called a couple people who got no answer.
I'm fighting.
Janet was talking to them.
They didn't even text me back or call me back.
And you know what? I've heard from teachers, and it's not just the P19 in classes. I heard from some AP teachers. They are upset that, we do AP over the course of a year. So our kids that took it fall semester and this semester, the whole year, they're not getting that push from taking that difficult class. Whereas seniors in, say, Wake County or Pitt County, they take AP classes by semester. So they got their push for the fall semester. So we've got some AP teachers that are very upset about the way that's being handled as well. So.
All right, well, thank you all so much for that information concerning prom and graduation ceremonies.
Yes, ma'am.
Continuing on with our land search update, Mr. Stefani?
We are in the process of trying to finalize a contract with our architect firm. Based on my understanding from the board, that's the next piece in the land search process, get the architect on board so that they can look at the building design and then match it up with the most appropriate site, and then they can help us with that decision. The way our attorneys did it is they have a template proposal, if you will, in excess of 5 to 30 pages, I think, is the template that we saw. The architectural firm fills in the amounts that they think each piece of the building process is going to cost, and then they send that back to the attorney, and now the attorney is getting ready to set up a conference call with Ms. Etheridge, me, Matt Mullins, and the attorney, and then the architect. And then we'll talk through specifics on that and see if we can get to a contract that we can present to the board for approval, and then the architect can start doing the work. We can send them these soil studies, we can send them the addresses or the parcel numbers of the sites, and then the board can continue along on this process.
I just wanted to say something about the soil sites, and that was at the last, I believe it was the April 21st meeting. We heard from the gentleman from GET Solutions, and Ms. Etheridge asked that he give us the summative and bullet points and what have you. That was included in our packet today. I just want to make sure that's added to the minutes for that meeting. And Ms. Etheridge sent us an email spelling out the 2 tracks and some positives from each. And since we've got a big audience today, I know they're all waiting to hear this information. I know it was graduation, but could you share with them?
I'd love to share with the public of my opinion, and as a realtor for 33 years, I always look at the pros and cons of any site that someone's going to purchase or buy or develop. And one site would be donated. I'm going to say site A would be donated. The stormwater design and engineering for site A, the cost would be paid by the developer. They would reserve a pool for the swim team if we decided we needed that. Apartments would be reserved for teachers. The developer is further along with the approval process and development. The location is centrally located to relieve both Shawboro Elementary and Moyock Elementary schools. They would share common infrastructure from Moyock Middle. The soil conditions are better according to GET Solutions, Inc. There's safe access to the highway. There are walking trails and a bike trail for children's safety, where the kids could walk or bike to school. Track B, we do not know the purchase price. We do not know if the land will be donated. There would be no perks for our teachers. There's currently an active mining permit on the property. Even though the individual that has the sales contingency states it will be closed, we do not have a definitive time frame on the reclamation. It's a very slow process with the state of North Carolina. No assistance with the stormwater design or engineering costs, unsafe access to the highway. There's no direct access to the highway without taking the land by eminent domain or the cooperation of the neighborhood, the landowners, the neighboring landowners. And we would also need a stoplight there for access to the property. So that's just some of the things that I highlighted for the board members to review. And I just wanted the public to know that we have identified 2 sites and we will be making our decision soon, but we are going to be doing some of our due diligence and checking with different experts in the field for development and gathering more data.
One piece of clarification. I saw some nonverbals on the screen when Ms. Etheridge said that in parcel A that there would be a swimming pool, for the swim team use. The housing development will have a swimming pool. They said that they would upgrade it to be an Olympic size pool, and then they would allow our swim team to use it on scheduled times. And so again, it's not that housing development is building a pool on our school site. It's in the housing development site, but it would be big enough and it would meet the requirements of a competition pool. And then our swim team could schedule times in when they would use it for practices.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't want that rumor going out there that we're building a pool.
I would
Thanks for
like to-
clarifying that.
I would like to hit on a couple points. Site A has a water table from 3.5, I believe it's 3.5 foot to 10 foot. And site B has a water table from 3.5 to 5 foot, varying along throughout the site. I'd also like to point out that when I asked the question, what are the sea level elevations of the two sites, that information wasn't provided and still hadn't been provided. I'd like to point out that I'm not particularly interested in having a agreement with the homeowners association for a swimming pool. However, if we chose that site, I still would not want to have a agreement with the HOA for us to use a pool. I'd rather us invest in our own pool. I don't want to have a litigation situation or a maintenance situation that far exceeds our responsibilities. And so I just wanted to point those things out. They are, both sites are unique and different, and they both face different challenges. And hopefully the architects will give us some guidance into which one would make the best fit for us.
I'd like to point out a couple of things too. I certainly would much rather us have our own swimming pool for our students, but given the budget situation, I don't think that's gonna happen. So, I think it's worth looking into. And that was site A. Site B, one thing that the gentleman talked about from GET, that group, was he had concerns about the dewatering effect of that mine and how they shut it off and turned it on, and it was way above my head. I did not understand it, but it would really present some problems if that were going on while we were building the school. And he did say if we waited until mining was complete, then it wouldn't be an issue. But
We don't
if,
have the option of waiting.
yeah, we can't wait. We need a school.
When I asked him about had there been any other adverse effects to any immediate properties, he said no. And then he talked about it being in a cone. And I asked him what the distance of, how far into the cone of this potential hazard. And he didn't have any identifying numbers for how big or how small the cone was. So there was no adverse effects on any adjacent commercial properties. And he couldn't identify how big the cone was. And he also mentioned at the other site that because the water table was shallower, that ground freezing could have an impact on the foundation. So both had varying concerns.
And Mr. Mullen shared with us that the school, Moyoc Middle School, that is currently located next to Site A, that there were some problems with cracking, I believe, when the school was first built, but they fixed it and there's been no problems since. Is that right, Mr. Mullins?
That's what I was, what the information that was given to me by people that were here before I was.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to add one thing to the fact that Mr. Stahl has got that summary to you folks today. He is camped out on a barge somewhere, and he worked on that document late the last couple of nights to try to get it to you on time. So I wanted to go on record that he bent over backwards to do something for us extra that wasn't part of the original contract.
Very informative, and I certainly appreciate it.
Yes, please, thank you.
Made it a little more clear.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Mr. Mullins?
It made it clearer for us, I believe.
Yes, I think so. Yes, please thank him for us. Dr. Dominique, do you have a question?
No, I was just going to point out that there was some cracking with the terrazzo, but they never did determine if it was due to settlement.
Oh, okay.
But the contractor fixed the terrazzo.
And we didn't have
Yeah, I think that occurs a lot of times, even with new construction. we've developed a couple small developments, and when we built houses in the past with the tile, normal settlement may crack a few pieces of your tile and you may have to replace it. So I just want to go on record that that wasn't anything major. It was a minor incident that occurred at the school.
Well, the other point that I want to make is, the one site does not have a traffic light, and the majority of the traffic for that school is going to be coming from the south and turning across 2 lanes of traffic. And, I would not be for getting that site unless we could get an agreement from DOT that they would put a stoplight in, and I really don't think we're going to get that.
Right.
Well, and there was the
Too many
other
stoplights
issue
in my
too,
life.
we didn't have a large enough right of way to even enter in, wasn't that correct?
Right, right. That was another concern I didn't bring up in my notes, but the actual easement to the property is not the amount of easement that you need for DOT approval. So we would have to take either by eminent domain, the amount of land that we would need for that from the property owner, or negotiate with them to buy that. But it would be like someone having a 100-acre farm and someone coming up to you and saying, listen, I need 10 feet of the farm for 300 feet. I just need 10 feet of it. Will you go ahead and sell me that? It's a very difficult thing to ask anyone. And I realize we can take it by eminent domain, but I do not feel comfortable doing that. And I want to go on record as saying that. I don't want to have to take anyone's property by eminent domain. I want it to be something that we're all in agreement with, including the landowner.
I just want to say, I agree with that. I just want to get these architects and let them tell us which way we should go.
Okay.
And that's what we're gonna do.
All right. Any other discussion concerning our land search update? All right. Do I have an approval for our consent agenda?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Ms. Kraft?
Aye.
Mr. Crodic?
Aye.
Dr. Dobney?
Aye.
Ms. Rose?
Aye.
And I agree. I'm in favor. Okay, the agenda is approved. Informational items. We have our next work session June 25th. And the time is pending as of now. And then also our Board of Education meetings the same date at the Currituck County Courthouse. Hopefully if things are back in swing.
Tell me those dates again, I'm sorry.
The 25th, June 25th.
That's so we can close out
On your
the
agenda.
year, right? Yeah.
It's
So we can
typical.
close out the
Yeah.
year.
On the back.
Ms. Edwards, just as an informational note to the board, typically that is the next meeting because we're getting ready to close out the fiscal year. But there might be a need for another meeting before that.
Yes.
And it's what I was going to share in superintendent comments at the end. And is the reason why.
Okay.
So if you want, if we can roll into that.
Yeah, let's go ahead and do that if you'd like to
Okay.
explain.
Give us a 25-word to.
Might be close to that. It might be close to that. The state, the General Assembly acted on their conference bill, and then the governor signed it. As part of that bill, there are new calendar laws. So the calendar that the board approved at the last meeting doesn't meet the new calendar laws. And so in the new calendar laws, here are some quickie highlights. Schools across the state will start on August 17th. Will, not, you have an option, you're gonna start a week earlier than they typically allow you in current state law. So we're starting there. You have to meet the 185 days or 1,025 hours. We've typically gone with 1,025 hours because with the parameters on when you can start and when you can finish, the days are really compressed. And so 1,025 hours has worked better for us. But it says in addition to that, no hour conversion allowed, you're gonna have 5 days on top of that. 5 days on top of the 1,025, and those days are gonna be designated as remote learning days. So the kids will be at home, but it's to get more of a, in my opinion, didn't say this in the bill, but it's to get school districts more attuned to planning online activities. And then if we have another situation like this, or any of our health disasters that have caused school districts to close for months, because it's so bad, you can ramp up the online learning because you're continually doing it. Right now, we're in the middle of it.
At the beginning then?
No, wherever during the school year. And so we're gonna try to figure out where are natural places when, an online day would fit possibly with the calendar, and then put those in there. So we're discussing options, and so we'll need to have a meeting a lot earlier than June 25th to get approved calendars out to our community. So we'll bring you a couple of options after we've restudied this law for like a 5th time, just to make sure that we've got all the specifics, because it's worded kind of quirkily. They keep bringing up 5 days over here, 5 days over there. So we just want to make sure we have everything. And so we'll bring you a couple of options and what we think is the best recommendation at whenever that other meeting is, late May, early June, something like that, so that at the beginning of summer, we can tell parents what next year's going to look like.
We took something off of the consent agenda, and we asked Mr. Stefanik to give us an update on COVID-19, give us like a report on the operations of our schools from moving forward, and I think we just kind of skipped it. Can you tell us a little bit about what the new?
Can you text it to us?
Yes. Can we remote in?
I can send you, well, and you have most of it.
Well, that was from Beagle,
Beagle, right,
but
right.
I think that folks need to know, because it's like, we can open the schools back up for staff, it sounds like.
Well,
What are we gonna do?
Well, we have to discuss this because it just came from our attorney. But as of tomorrow, at 5 p.m., there's a new executive order that's going to take effect, and it allows for going back to some of those early permissions that schools had outside of the typical stay-at-home orders. So when we said, when we got to the point where we shut down the schools and we said everybody should work from home, and so then the teachers went for working from home, anybody that could do at-home work went to working from home. It allows now options to allow some services to come back to quasi-normal functioning, at the schools. So if there's some teachers who, believe that they actually could provide better remote learning by doing some things in their actual classrooms, they'll be allowed to come back and do those things. But there's still restrictions on 10 people in any given space. So an example they gave, let's use JP Knapp because that's where we're sitting right now. We're in the PLC, so 10 people can be here. If there's 10 other people in the A building, in some of the classrooms up there, that would be permissible. But just you can get your staff together, but you have to make sure that they're in pockets of 10 or less in any given room that they are. So some of those restrictions have been lifted for our food service employees and our food service program. Something to consider, but not to implement like just immediately. We could expand the pickup option at the schools if we think that would work for our families, because it says parents are allowed to come out of their houses in opposition to the stay-at-home order for government services. And an example that was in here was they could come get their lunches rather than possibly us doing the extensive bus deliveries all over the county. Not saying you have to do that, but they say that you're allowed to do that now under this first phase of the restrictions being eased a bit. So then we look at maintenance operations, custodial, things like that, do some of those start, coming back to quasi-normal? Those are all discussions that we'll have to have department by department in the next couple of days as this order takes effect at dinner time tomorrow.
I have a question to clarify. I know we've got some groups in the FFA that are doing some practice, because they're going to be competing at the state level later. They've been meeting remotely in small groups, like less than 10. Would they be allowed to come back to school? Still cannot. They still have to meet remotely.
Yeah, it says in here, schools remain closed for in-person instruction, and so that means that student activities can't be done on site. Yeah, just faculty functions of the district can happen in small groups now.
Okay. All right, any further discussion? All right.
Updates on calendar development as we start to move along the
Okay. Yeah, I
revision
think we're gonna
process.
have a few meetings, upcoming meetings in the next weeks.
Yes.
Mr. Chronic,
Yes.
would you like to say a few words?
That's quite a few.
Oh, no.
You ready?
A few
Dr.
words.
Downey put everybody in the 25 minutes or less.
Yeah.
Y'all want to go first? I'll wrap it up then.
You'll use all your words. Say so.
I got a lot of words. All right, so first of all, I'd like to thank all the parents and the teachers and the staff for trying to do the impossible and unthinkable with little or no advance warning and little or no preparation, not intentionally. But I'd also like to ask them to look back on this and learn something from it. Not just put 5 days in the calendar for planning for working on computers from home and getting better at that. But I believe that more resources and allowing parents to help with like math homework previously would have aided to the cause, because we didn't, as necessarily I wasn't in favor, but we haven't adopted the idea that, particularly at the early levels, when homework goes home, that parents confuse the kids. And now we're finding parents are there with the kids. So how ironic. So what I'd ask is that we open up our thoughts going forward. I believe books would have helped this situation, more resources would have helped this situation, and parent involvement prior to this would have helped this situation. I don't have all the answers, and I never claim to, but certainly with every situation, you can learn something. I'd also like to ask this body and this administration to seriously think about reevaluating a lot of our local policies. I think they're very restrictive. I think a lot of them aren't needed. And it really makes it difficult. You really find yourself torn. It's really hard when you know something going on and you can't do anything about it because some policy that we adopted has muzzled and shackled you. It's just sad. So with all that, I'd like to say that I'm really sorry that everybody's having to go through this with their graduation and prom and other senior activities. I'm saddened by the fact that all these kids are in fear, not all, but a lot, as to what's going on around the world, not being able to get out and see their friends. And I'm saddened by all that. But hopefully we'll all get back to work and we'll all get back to a regular life. And I want people to understand that if you're going to work, no matter what you do, and you're providing for your family, that your job's essential and you're essential too. And so everybody in this whole circumstance, some people do this thing and some people do that. But you're all heroes, because nobody would have ever thought we'd had to deal with this. And with that, I'd like to say God bless Currituck County, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Potter. Ms. Kraft?
Yes. Of course, with schools being closed, I've not been able to visit our schools, and that makes me sad. However, I did put on a bright pink mask, made a big pink sign, and took thank you notes and Milky Way candy bars to the nutrition and transportation employees at Moyock Middle School and Currituck County High School. And yes, I'll be at Knott's Island tomorrow. Milky Ways, because they are out of this world great. I also want to thank all of our students, our parents, our faculty, and our staff for their hard work in this trying time. You've come through like you would. I also want to thank everyone for the many texts, messages, cards. Lost my mother. Thank you very much.
Ms. Kraft? Ms. Rose?
I would like to give a shout out to everyone who has made remote learning possible at the drop of a hat. I am impressed. And to the parents who have, I don't know how they've done it with juggling full-time jobs and being home with their children, and all of a sudden they've become teachers. And I know it's not been easy, but a shout out to them as well. School nutrition continues to feed our children and amaze me. Thank you to them. Our high school faculties, thank you for making our seniors feel special. Parents, seniors, and staff members, I've had more of you reach out to me this week about issues that are affecting you and that you're concerned about than the whole time that I've been on the board. And I want to thank you for reaching out and sharing your thoughts. And I want to encourage you to reach out and share with us, anything that's on your mind. We do not know how you feel unless you share with us. Congratulations to our JP Knapp class of 2020 and our Currituck County High School class of 2020. I'm proud of all of you. And I hope that everybody has a great summer, because we won't meet again until we're out of school.
Bill?
Yes, I'd like to thank everybody that's helping us get through this COVID-19 mess. And I also appreciate the student art calendar, which we received today. And that happened to be a program that I started when I was superintendent. And the last thing I'd like to do would be to nominate Mr. Craddock to head the policy review and revision committee.
I've already reviewed it. I've already
Second
reviewed
that motion.
There you go. Let's have it.
I may bring it up on the agenda next
You,
time.
let's do it. Let's roll.
Thank you, Bill. Okay.
I'm reading Homeland.
I too like to thank everyone that has been involved in every aspect of virtual learning. My hat's off to you. I would not want your job. I would be taking a trip if I were in some of your shoes. You probably wouldn't see me for about 6 weeks. But anyway, thanks to everyone involved, Dr. Matney and staff. We were able to go to the get-together, drive-by with the cap and gown distribution the other day, and what a turnout, what a celebration with the students driving through, picking up their cap and gown, and just for us to be able to show them how much we care and how proud we are of them. The graduation signs that were distributed this morning, I offered, to help with that. Of course, I didn't need to, because they said they had enough people to help and assist with putting those out for each senior this morning within a few hours of time frame. And what a nice thing to do for our seniors to recognize them. I would like to say one thing. I'm going to be able to attend the Knapp graduation at the end of this month, but of course I won't be able to attend the June graduation, and that saddens me. But in my absence, for the June 11th Currituck County High School graduation, I would like to ask Janet Rose to serve as the Board of Education representative in my absence, since this year her daughter Abby is graduating, and she knows so many of our seniors, and she knows the parents, and she knows a lot of the staff members. I would like to ask you to serve in my absence.
It would be an honor.
Thank you very much. And with that, I would like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Roll call.
Unanimous.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Are you coming back?
Have a good evening.
Good night.
Night, night.
Good night.
I've still got to be there tomorrow.
It's
While I'm here.
all Facebook.
We're doing, the doctor doesn't want